So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. With Elise Hall.
Present.
Angela Anderson. Here. Bruce Stevens.
Here.
Anna Berman. Here. Angela Dupree-Chart. Greg Schaffman.
Here.
David Evans.
Here.
6 of the 7 are present. Thank you.
And for the recording today is Tuesday, May 12th. This is our town council meeting. We had a work session earlier on council legal trading. And now we're going to go ahead and move to item 2, which is the consent agenda. Item 2A, minutes of April 28, 2026. Item 2B, resolution number 22, series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving an agreement for professional services with the Fountain Group, LLC, for summer youth day camps. Item 2C, continued May 26, 2026, public hearing, 555 Basalt Avenue, development application for special review PUD amendments and associated development review action for 54 commercial storage units and 47 residential units. Anyone would like to remove any of those from the consent agenda, please say so. Otherwise, I would approve, or I would encourage a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up, we have our call to public, item number 3. And for those here in the room, just a quick comment on the ground rules. Limit your comments to 3 minutes and address your comments directly to me. Make sure you identify yourself by name and address and sign in the back of the room with your name and address. Please try to be courteous, civil, constructive, and town council will make no decision nor take action except to direct the town manager. And I'm going to go ahead and get this going. If anyone would like to come on up to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Maggie Cromer and I live at Riverwalk, and I'm here to ask about ordinance number 9. And I guess my first question is why we need permission from the town to put a gate up on private property.
So this isn't really a Q&A session, first, and second, I would save your testimony for that public hearing, because it has a public hearing as well. So that way it's on the record for that specific public hearing.
And this would be later today or at a later date?
It's item 7B on the agenda there.
So it's later this
It's
evening?
later this evening.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I should have added any public hearings that we have tonight. If you want to speak on behalf of, or speak for those topics, I would encourage you to wait till those, so your comments will be on the record for those agenda items.
Good evening. Hi, it's me again. I sent you all my heartfelt safety pleas, and I want to thank you for your patience with me. Any consideration or help that you can give would be greatly appreciated. I'm exhausting every avenue before I must make some really hard decisions with really big consequences, lasting ones. And lastly, I will always speak up for the children and their well-being. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I know you can't do it now. I'm available.
We got your attachments you sent too, so we'll
Thank
get a
you.
chance to read those.
All right, take care.
Anyone else that would like to come up to make public comments, please do so. All right, well, I will move on then to item 4, which is mayor and council reports and comments. So the floor is open for fellow councilors.
I wanted to say thank you to Basalt PD because and Public Works, there were 2 gigantic rocks that fell down on 2 rivers. They were there super quick, helped guide traffic around, everyone was safe. And I also wanted to thank Gloria and James and Angela and other folks for helping me find some housing and give me options and make sure that I can stay here and stay in somewhere affordable. So it takes a village to do that, so thank you for being my village.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I wanted to say that Basalt Elementary is having a coffee chat at Northmead Park this weekend on Saturday, May 16th, from 10 a.m. to noon. So if you are a prospective student, maybe you have an incoming kindergartner, or you're just interested to learn more about Basalt Elementary, it's going to be a great time. There'll be parents there, also administrators, teachers. So it's going to be a nice community event and a good time to learn more about our local elementary school.
Thanks.
I would just mention, I went to the Rhode Water and Power Authority put on a watershed collaborative meeting this last week. It was about 5 hours of bad news. With the one, I think, good point being that if we all educate ourselves and work together and it rains a little bit, there's a chance that things won't be as bad as they can. And so I think one of my takeaways from that is water law is very complicated. Water usage is very complicated. And so rather than spending so much time thinking about other people are using water, I think it's everybody's responsibility to think about how we can use less water. Their slogan was dial it back. And I think it's something that we all need to do.
If I can add that I attended that as well, and I thought it was really well done, fascinating. I completely nerded out. But yeah, just the explanations of the way that they're measuring snowpack now. The first presenter, I can't think of his name.
Jeff Deans.
Thank you. Was comparing our snowpack to a reservoir and saying, you know, if we were in a location that stored water in a reservoir, we know exactly how much water we have, but because our reservoir is a snowpack, it's so much harder to predict. And so they have these new tools, and it was just really fascinating. And agreed, yeah, we all need to be really aware of our water usage this year for sure.
The good news is we've had a pretty good May so far, and I haven't turned on my water, but the grass seems to be cut, so it's good. It's a good sign for at least so far. So hopefully, we're going to get some more rain and people make good decisions.
And they also talked about the aquatic nuisance species, and yeah, ever vigilant.
I also just want to mention I did happen to go to a lacrosse tournament last weekend. It's at Basalt Connect. Experimented with expanding the service. Used Basalt Connect right there. I thought it was an amazing event. I'm so excited to see the energy and the people there. I think that is an amazing thing that we have here.
I did attend the Economic Summit last Thursday in Silverthorne, Northwest Cog, put on, interesting across the board. I did leave early in the afternoon. We were going to do an exercise with AI, and mine went down a lot, but I had to get back here anyway. But the first report was about the population and what's happening with the aging population, which I guess we'll hear from later on, especially in Colorado, and also the demographic tied to that was fertility and the number of children. And it really represents kind of a challenge to the state of Colorado for a future employee base, especially in the professional categories and things like that. So there's a lot to pay attention to there. The other thing was a report from the Insight Collective that talked about the shift in how most Coloradans, apparently in most small towns, feel about tourism. I'll just read a couple things that are behind these main themes. The community is improving physically, but not necessarily becoming more livable. Quality of life is not being experienced equally. Tourism is an amplifier of existing pressures. I think that's a pretty important statement. Those indicate that the quality of life is declining. We're much more likely to describe the quality of life through the lens of their personal strain, not community investment. Less likely to acknowledge balance among new amenities, infrastructure, and services. Framing housing as a critical issue. So I think the direction, for me personally, that the town is taking to improve our services at a local level, fundamental level, will help our community have a quality of life that's sustainable and that people can still count on a small town sort of feel for Basalt. So the total data was collected over, I think, 3,000 individuals in all the municipalities in Colorado. So it's a pretty broad-ranging survey, and a lot of it involved towns that are adjacent to core resorts. So a lot of common themes came out of those towns, similar to what you hear in the Northwood Valley. So that was a very good opportunity to learn more about what's going on across the board here as it relates to tourism, the economy of tourism. Thanks for sending it out. Nice room.
Thanks, Rick. Just a couple quick comments for those who are watching online. Apologies, we had some technical difficulties, but it looks like the feed is back up now. Thanks to Grassroots for that. Earlier this month, Gloria and I attended the Eagle County Mayor's Roundtable over at Eagle. Had a chance to discuss and trade notes with other leaders from that side of the county on wildfire, water, and regional housing, and no surprise, a lot of the same challenges over there as we're having here. But it was a good discussion. And then I'd also like to give a thank you to Basalt PD and Nino Santiago in particular. I saw at the Joy of Music, which was last Friday. The Basalt bands put that on every year as a kind of a grand concert for all of the ages and types of ensembles they have. Plus, it's their fundraiser for the boosters, and it went really well. So appreciate the support from the PD on that. And that is it, I believe, for mayor and council reports and comments. Next up, we'll move to item 5, which is the manager's reports. Gloria.
Awesome, thank you. I'll begin with this. So we do have our Public Works Police Department survey is out live, so our public service facility. We are gathering information from our community right now. So if you would like to take the survey, you can go to letstalkbasalt.net and let us know how you're feeling about our new public service facility that we are proposing. So we also, right now, we have another application to the Eagle County Good Deeds Program in the works, and I wanted to kind of gauge the council's appetite to bring that forward or not. I'm not sure what the protocol has been. I know this is a new program, so I kind of wanted to chat with you all. We did spend down the last one, but I was approached by Eagle that there is another applicant.
Okay.
So.
You're looking for direction.
Yeah, I'm looking for direction to either find funding or tell them that we're doing just one this year.
I mean, let's do the analysis and kind of get that. Okay. See what that looks like. That's how we might reference others.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, we'll bring that before you all in the next meeting then. And then you had directed me on the Homestead Drive parking discussion, and that's scheduled for the next meeting. So we're putting together our data for that. Angel and I met with the elementary school leadership team last week regarding their efforts in recruitment and retention of students. So we will be providing them booth space for the school at our Sunday markets and concerts, so they can recruit and retain students. And they'll also be doing a presentation to you all. And then, yes, the good news is that we have expanded our Basalt Connect service. We'll now be servicing Crown Mountain, Summit Vista, and Emma. And we started last weekend as like a soft rollout, mostly because we were able to finalize everything on Friday. And so we'll be doing a much larger education campaign around our new service. But this is within our current contract, so there's no additional cost to the town right now. And the catch is that if you are going to Crown Mountain, Summit Vista, or Emma, you need to either start at a transit or end at a transit stop unless you're going to City Market. So the reason for that is that we are funded through RAFTA. 40% of our current cost for Basalt Connect is funded through RAFTA, and it's based on connecting those stops to a transit stop. So expanding our area has the potential to potentially dilute those numbers, and that's why we put this caveat in there, so that we would have it either start or end at a transit stop, so we don't compromise our funding.
I appreciate too well, obviously the whole effort to get this figured out. That was really great. I know that there's been a lot of demand and a lot of discussion. Is this supposed to be a last mile solution to kind of the backbone of mass transit fundamentally? So I think that those caveats are fine. But I think the carve out for City Market is great too. that's one of the best use cases for Basalt Connect is, connectivity for those who can't get to the grocery store. So that's huge.
Yeah, so we'll be evaluating that to make sure it's not diluting our numbers, but I also want to plug that Basalt Connect does allow good dogs on their transit buses. So as long as they are good, you can go take them to Crown Mountain and walk them around.
What was the issue?
Whoa, those are not allowed. No, I'm just kidding. And that's all I have for my manager's report.
Thank you very much. All right, next up we have item 6, presentations, and our first one is item 6A, swearing in of new council member Elise Hall. So Pam, please.
Okay.
They haven't updated yet.
She just figured it out.
I see.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Elise Hoddle,
Do affirm that I will support the Constitution
do affirm that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the laws of the State of Colorado,
and the laws of the State of Colorado,
and of the town of Basalt,
and of the town of Basalt,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of Basalt Town Councilor,
of the office of Basalt Town Councilor,
upon which I am about to enter,
upon which I am about to enter
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, family.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have item 6B, which is our chamber presentation on blueprint data. We have Chris Pateri here from Basalt Chamber of Commerce.
So we're gonna have to get creative with this because there is no audio and my other presenter's remote and she can't hear anything.
All right.
So it's gonna make it really interesting to present. So I'm gonna FaceTime. Yeah, so I will have to FaceTime audio her so she can actually hear what's going on.
I think that'll work fine.
Hopefully it works. Today was also the day that my phone decided to brick and I am only working through Wi-Fi. So, it's been great.
Do you want me to call her?
Sorry,
If you want a phone that can use data, you can also use my phone if you want.
let's see, I think she's on Do Not Disturb.
Can you deliver it quietly, like, hey?
Yeah, hold on, let's check.
We actually probably could get chat in there.
Okay, let's try this.
Oh yeah, you want me to send her a chat?
She's. Alright, hold on. Can you hear there? Okay, I don't know if I can get this loud enough. Can you try talking?
Can you hear me in the council chambers?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Alright, we'll do that instead.
Okay. I can barely hear you on my phone.
Alright, but you won't hear me. Let's see. I wonder if I unmute myself here.
Amy, can you hear Chris?
Amy, can you hear me now? Alright, alright. You're gonna get it back out.
I think she can hear you. So, yeah, Amy, can you still hear Chris?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear Chris and us?
That's the problem. None of the audio in this room is working.
Yeah,
The mics, okay. So maybe turn down the TV and then let's get her on the phone. could do that.
Yeah.
Aye.
Can you
How about we'll have you hear me through this, and then is that gonna be enough for you to hear me or not?
I can barely hear you, but I'll just hold it up to my ear.
Okay, hold on. There's your headphones on this one so you can at least hear me.
You can pull up the conference phone.
Yeah, okay, maybe we'll call you from that conference phone.
If this works, we should keep doing it because.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Because he was all over his side.
Well, I mean, no, let's just go. Your team up.
Switch somewhere.
Is there any remote participation for the next presentation? Or you guys?
No, they're all here.
Okay, let's do that. We can switch then with the, so I don't know if anybody can hear you outside the room or not, but we're going to move item 6C, Aging Initiatives in the Valley, with Dr. Chad Fitzworth's Pickett County and Carly Wright in Eagle County. We're going to do that now, and then we're going to, so you guys can come up to the desk up here, and then we're going to get a phone set up so we can do chamber presentation on blueprint data after that. So, just to keep things moving.
We have slides, but how
Oh,
do you
yeah.
guys prefer we show those or?
Yeah, James has the slides.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, thank you for patience at overrun the line here.
No, you're great. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so I guess I'm first. You could just do some introductions.
Yes, sure.
Before. So thanks for having us. My name is Dr. Chad Fedowitz. I'm the manager of Pickett County Senior Services. So I oversee the Senior Center up in Aspen. I also oversee Adult Protection Services and Veteran Services for Pickett County. And I'll be talking about the Pickett County's work around age-friendly communities and initiatives.
And I'm Carly Reitman. I'm the Healthy Aging Manager for Eagle County Public Health. We have a really vibrant senior program over here in Elgeville. Mandy DiCamillo is our leader of all of our senior programs over here. So we just got through our newest Aging Well plan for Eagle County, which does include all of our friends over here in the Roaring Fork Valley. So we're super happy just to present to you guys a little bit about our newest plan called our Aging Well Roadmap. So.
And Eagle and Pickett, Carly and I and Mandy, we work really closely together on these different initiatives. So that's why we wanted to come together to present, let alone that Basalt is in 2 different counties, which we both hear a lot about. So I'll just dive into some of Pickett County's work. Just a very quick overview, go to the next slide. Pickett County started this work around the same time that Eagle County did, around 2014, to have a strategic plan around addressing how I frame it as around the challenges and opportunities of aging. They're not all challenges and they're not all opportunities. It's really both. We all will age, if we like it or not. So why not we try to be a little more positive about it and support aging in our communities. And I won't belabor that, but so it's been a long road with different iterations of the work. Been around 2017, Pickett County's work got associated with ADRP and the World Health Organization, nationally and internationally recognized as an age-friendly community. Eagle County followed suit as well. Which really means that the county as a whole has a plan that is dedicated to examining this question, if you will, that is aging in our community. What does it mean to age well, to have the supports needed, and where are there gaps and where are there opportunities? A lot of that work in communities all across the country in Colorado is already happening. If it's in a senior center, if it's in human services, if it's in public health, if it's at town council meetings, aging is everywhere. We may not always call it that, specifically. That's what Carly and I do. But it's within all aspects of life, business, etc. And so this is just a frame to help us look at it more holistically. We can move on to the next slide. And so now fast forward to currently, the plan I think I shared as well, I don't know if that was in the memo or not, is our current update of the plan for the next 5 years. For Pickens County, it really acts as a roadmap or a North Star of where we want to strive for as far as supporting growing older and throughout the life course in Pickens County. And what does that mean? And so really the goal of this plan from the beginning up until now is to ensure residents, and I would say visitors as well to some degree, can age safely and remain connected and continue to contribute to their community, to our community. And so we did that this time around in previous versions of gathering a lot of community input throughout the county, in the Basalt area, the Mid-Valley, Redstone, and Snowmass Village, and Aspen, and just out in the county as a whole. And working with community partners and other organizations, other counties as well, to gather input about what is the kind of status of aging in place in our community. Where are there opportunities, where are there gaps, what were the loudest things that we've heard from the community. So what you'll see in the Pickens County plan, and I'm sure the Eagle County plan, is really the voice of the residents of our county, highlighting what they see as opportunities and gaps. You can go on to the next one. Really, my approach, guys at Eagle as well, is that age-friendly work, yes, it's housed in our departments, which focus on older adults, which is anyone over 60 years old. But anything that's good for an old adult is also good for a 4-year-old or a brand new mother crossing the street. The things that older adults value are things that we all value. We may not need it right now, but maybe one day we might, right? And we all want access to services, we all want safe transportation options, we all want safe sidewalks, etc., etc. So the way I think about this work is it's supporting the life course. So when we are born until we die, what do we need as a person? What do we need as a community to be supported in that life course? I can go on and on, but I'll stop. We'll go on to the next slide. Yeah, I will. As you probably are aware to some degree, Colorado is an aging state. We are no different in this area of the states, between Pickens, Eagle, and some other neighboring counties. We're the fastest aging part of Colorado and some of the fastest aging parts of the United States as well. So just so you know, we were just conferring these numbers a couple minutes ago. In the Basalt address, there's about 1,000 older adults, so 1,000 people over 60 between the two counties. The overwhelming majority is Eagle side, but Pickens has about 200, just over 200 older adults in the Basalt address. Moving on, the framework of the Pickens County plan is really set on what's called the 8 domains of livability, which for all intents and purposes are the social determinants of health. I'll let public health experts talk more about that if she wants. Then moving on, this work really frames up some of these key questions around solutions and opportunities. On the next slide is collaboration, policy and advocating for policy and programs, outreach, so really having community, older adults or otherwise, know what is available and frankly what is not available in our community or in our valley, frankly. And then empowering community members, older adults themselves, their families, to access services, to ask questions, and seek out solutions. So our next steps for Pickens County is, this is my last roadshow presentation. I presented to all the municipality leadership in Pickens County along with the Board of County Commissioners. I will probably be going back to let them know how all my talks went. And then we'll continue on working on the goals and achievables of the plan. things that are a little more achievable in the first year or so. Again, there may be some things in there that seem very lofty, and they're in there for a reason. But this is our North Star. If we can achieve certain things, this is where we want to end up. So the last question, I don't really have an ask per se, but the question is, are there any current initiatives that the town of Basalt has that you see alignment with this work? And anything else that we would need to know as far as the department goes. That's what I got from my end. So I'll pass it off to Carly.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I think you guys have this in front of you, so I won't go super in-depth with all of my slides, but I am glad for you to have the information, and we would love for you to reach out if you have questions or ideas. Do want to thank you guys so much for that little extension with the Basalt Connect over to Crown Mountain, which is actually over to our building, which just helps so much with some of our seniors getting around this area, so thank you very much for that consideration.
One comment related to transportation too, I don't know, Chad, if you're aware, but at the end of June, RAFTA is going to restart a pilot with the flyer, where it's going to go to the Castle and Maroon Valleys. I think it's 5 round trips between 7 and 9:30 and 5 round trips from 3 to 6. So that'll be from Brush Creek up both valleys, 5 times to that village. That should be helpful as well. I know sometimes it's tricky getting up there, bus connections and everything.
Yes.
Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So we like to just start out with some demographic information again, just so you guys have a sense. This is obviously all of Eagle County. As Chad said, we have right around 800 people 60 and over in the Basalt area. But I'd like to just show these numbers just for really the percentage increase. 2015 to 2025, those are big numbers, so we'd like to just make sure all of you have data like that. You can go to the next one. And again, this is an interesting one, so this you might not be able to see, but it's 2023 to 2033. So by 2033, there will be more people over 60 than there are under 17. So that's just something, we know we have lots and lots of programming for youth, and rightly so, but just something to keep in mind as our communities are aging. I think for our purposes, like towns and businesses, obviously, we have to think about people retiring, succession planning, what happens to our workforce, and where do they live, and how do we keep them here if they wish to stay here. So just some pieces there to consider. As Chad said, our plan was really well informed by our community members. This is just a quick snapshot of what we did as far as our community engagement. Did some smaller focus groups with some more kind of specific interest groups. And then we had 2 large presentations. These were all held last summer. One in Edwards with about 59 attendees. We had our event over here at our Elgibel building in conjunction with Pitkin County and had 23 Eagle County residents, which I was thrilled with. I wasn't really sure what we were gonna see over here with the attendance, so we were happy to see that. And then we also work closely with some of our public health colleagues to get really focused with our Spanish-speaking population. So we actually had 91 surveys come back. I don't know, from most of my Eagle County experience, we get excited if we have like 10 or so. So we felt just really good about that 91 number. We also were able to capture people pretty much from 45 and up, so I really liked that, and that we just could see, what some of the younger generations are thinking about as they age in Eagle County. And then we did have an advisory committee, of which some of your staff members, Town of Basalt, you guys have been really helpful in that, and we did one-on-one interviews with all of our advisory committee members. We had an advisory committee in the Eagle River Valley and one in the Roaring Fork Valley, met separately, and then we came together and met as a big group twice. So. And then again, this is where it gets pretty into the weeds, and I'm not going to read all of these, but just in general, so you can see where our priority areas ended up. Healthcare, obviously, big deal for everybody. no matter if you're 60 or over or not. Specialty healthcare is hard. Getting to some of that specialty healthcare in Denver or sometimes Grand Junction or even further is tricky, especially with our geographic barriers and sometimes, people's just mobility issues with not being able to drive themselves. So we're really looking at expanding in-home care, expanding support for caregivers and people that need care, and then just working with some of our other local partners to expand some ideas there. Over here we have Mid-Valley Family Practice as a big partner, so they have been great, and we will continue to have someone from their team on our steering committee as we move forward. So, housing, obviously, no surprise there. Trying to get creative with housing. We know that we can't just build our way out of that problem, but where can we bring older adults into the mix of some programs that might already be happening, such as workforce programs or home sharing. So just trying to get creative on how we can make the housing burden a little less for our older adults so that they can actually stay here. A lot of what we're seeing, and probably you guys are too, once people stop working, it's a hard place to be retired on a fixed income. So how are we working to keep people here longer is really the goal of that one. Transportation, you guys are already checking one of our boxes, which my public health director was making that connection this week. I was like, oh yeah, we're doing that. But Town of Basalt, kudos, so thank you guys. But again, just how are we making transportation easier for people, especially that first and last mile obviously is a big gap. Getting from your home to a bus stop is not always easy. I do feel like the Roaring Fork Valley is a lot easier in that regard compared to the Eagle River Valley, so we do look at you guys and RAFTA as a model, so thank you for that. Again, social connection, this is a huge piece. Mandy does an amazing job of running our programs over at our Elgibel building. For many years, well, as long as I've been around, 15 years, we've always done our programming days 2 days a week, and we are excited to add a third day for just the Elgibel site starting July 1st. So Elgibel runs super well, very autonomously over here, so we are using it as a pilot to see how a 3-day-a-week model works. So inching our way up, using Elgibel as a good example, and then trying to transfer that over to our Eagle and our Minturn sites eventually. So as we know, people thrive when they are connected to people, they eat better. There's lots of data around just being with other people, as we know. So, and then right now we're in the implementation phase, so these are just some of the areas that we've already started working on. Housing, caregiver support, and transportation, those are details of what we're currently doing, but really excited because this plan was adopted just this February, so we kind of hit the ground running and we're excited to keep going. We did, like I said, form a steering committee that is going to represent both Eagle River and Roaring Fork Valleys, so looking forward to more to come there. But just also wanted to, it's great to be in front of you guys just so you know what we are doing, and if you have ideas, whether it's your Town of Basalt role or your professional or personal lives, just keep in mind we really love to collaborate and listen to your ideas. So if you have other things that pop up as you're reading through this, I would love to hear from you. And then Chad and I both will give a plug. We work with a contractor named Rachel Cohen who owns a company called Aging Dynamics. And she pretty much just focuses on public planning in the realm of aging. So we got really lucky both working with her, and then I feel like it created some cohesion between the two counties and our plans. But we typically have a pretty aligned vision on our work. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Questions?
I guess related to what services are available to people, I read The Age of Dignity, and one of the chapters talks about how 1/3 of American adults over, I think it might be 55, don't have $1 saved for retirement. Another third have about one annual salary's worth of retirement savings, and then the rest have more than that. Do you have a sense, as we think about how people can afford to live here on a fixed income, of of what that pie chart looks like in our community?
I'm not sure about the pie chart, but I'll just speak from my personal experience, is we're seeing a lot more people in that boat. Obviously, we're in a tourism and recreation county and towns, and we're seeing a lot of our recreation tourism employees retiring and now being like, oh, this is real, and I'm trying to stay here, and maybe didn't have the traditional 401k kind of savings. So that, especially in the Eagle River Valley, I'm starting to see a lot more of those people. Those people also tend to be aging here without support. Many of them came here in the 70s, 80s, probably didn't expect to age here, and now here we are. So we are starting to see that, and work on how are we supporting those people to be able to stay as well as we can. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree on this side of the valley. I think we do see more and more older adults starting to navigate that space with more challenges than maybe we did 10 years ago, or maybe slightly more. I know that within human services, I'm sure in both counties, individuals go to economic assistance departments and work with them. In the valley, relatively new, we have the Financial Empowerment Center that will work with anyone about how to navigate their finances, to be able to stay in place and plan better for saving, and etc. And people are working longer than they did. Retirement as a thing assumes you retire when you're supposed to. That's how it was set up. That's why Social Security is the way it's set up historically. You're not supposed to work after a certain age. You're supposed to ride off into the sunset and do whatever you're going to do. That is no longer the case. You cannot just retire. Most people, on average, cannot just retire and never work again. We see more and more older adults who retire from their 30 or 40-year career and have a second job, and they do that for 10, 15 more years. So kind of a second life, some people refer to that as.
And is that out of financial reasons?
And more times than not, at least looking at the data, it's because of financial reasons. There's a little bit of, you can't just turn a switch off after 40 years. And that's what we're told we should do, and you can't. Right? It's not healthy, it's not normal just to work for 40 years and I'm never gonna work again. I'm gonna fish for the next 30 years of my life. I would love that, but that's not for everybody. So what we think about retirement doesn't exist anymore. It's evolving, just like the workplace has evolved, particularly in the last 5 or 7 years or so.
And I think just sense of purpose, right? It's a big thing for all of us, and no matter what your age is, like it's super important to have that sense of purpose. So it might just be through a little bit of work or full-time work. That's where you find it. So I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
That's why for us it's really important to keep people here, because there's so much they can still be contributing to our communities. So it really is a win-win for those people that want to do that. So. Yeah.
Good question.
What about kind of related to the affordability aspect, property tax relief programs? I believe both counties have them. Is there kind of underwritten by the state, somewhere as far as reimbursements? Can you talk a little bit about what programs are offered in each county and how people can take advantage of them?
You could. I say you should start.
Okay.
You actually have a little bit more to share.
Yeah. So Pickens County does have and has had since the late 90s a senior property tax relief program that started in the department and still exists today. The applications just closed at the end of April, and so that is for older adults, people over 60, in Pickens County that either rent or own, and has different qualifications depending on that status, that can receive relief from their property taxes. If it's a renter, then it's based off of the property value of that rental property and what your rent would be. So it's a slightly different calculation. And so for that, it's really based on income. So Currently for Pickens County, for the senior program, it's 400% of poverty, which for a single person is like $60K and change or so. So anyone that makes that or less is eligible, assuming they provide appropriate paperwork, which is really proof of income, proof of residency, that they would be eligible to receive relief from their property taxes, which is different for every person because it's based on the property tax assessment, but generally it's about 50% of what your taxes would be owed. You would receive 50% of that back. So it can wildly vary.
For the Pickens County portion, right?
For Pickens County portion, it's a Pickens County program.
And yeah, we actually don't have a similar program in Eagle County. We are currently rewriting our land use regulations, so also trying to work some of that possibly into that, but otherwise just the Colorado homestead exemption, which you guys might be familiar with, is really what we can offer. But we do struggle over here because people sometimes in this Basalt area, if you're in Eagle County, you're not getting that same benefit, which is unfortunate. So we don't have a similar program at the moment.
The premise of the Pickens County program was back in the 90s even. We were seeing a number of older adults that, in layman's terms, were land rich and cash poor. They were living on, translating into today's dollars, $2,000 in Social Security a month. I don't know how people could do it, and I have many applicants that their only income is Social Security, right? Unfortunately or fortunately for them, where they live is worth well over $1 million, but they have no cash to buy groceries. So it's really that's an extreme example, but land rich, cash poor aspect to try to provide some relief for lower income older adults.
Because the homestead exemption, that's 50% of the first 200,000.
You
Yes,
got it.
yeah.
Six, and you have to have lived in your residence 10 plus years. So sometimes that's tricky for some people too. But yeah.
Yep.
Along those lines, I know, and fact check me if I get any of this wrong, but my recollection is that APTRA was trying to give people priority if they wanted to downsize. Like if you're in a 4-bedroom, you get to be the top of the line for a 2-bedroom that comes up, but that it wasn't very utilized. And I'm wondering if you guys have more insight into that, and if there would be incentives for an older adult who maybe feels land rich, cash poor, to make that choice and give up a bedroom, but then maybe get more cash to be able to live their daily life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have intimate knowledge of that. I think a pilot is still happening, and my understanding, one person took that offer up. My understanding, which again I don't have a lot of detail off the top of my head, is given kind of where rates are in many cases, what I'm hearing from clients is I would spend more money to downsize. So why? I have a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. If I want a 1-bedroom, I'm going to spend more money. No one would take that up. I'm sorry.
In our housing department at Eagle County, we have something called the Locals First program. So it's essentially, if you're kind of a workforce housing program, but we're, as part of our Aging Well roadmap, we're working with them to create something called the Seniors First program. So similar, if you are an older adult, you've made the bulk of your income working in Eagle County, you could then be prioritized for some of our deed restricted housing or some incentives to downsize. So that's an exciting program we are hoping to see come out of our current plan.
Like that example, I think there are models out across the country, across the state, that can assist in addressing some of these challenges that older adults particularly face in aging, or with aging in community, especially in higher cost of living areas. So there is opportunity. Maybe we're just not quite there yet, in my opinion.
Let us know how we can help you advertise the senior programs at the Elgin Center. I honestly had no idea that was going on until my husband stumbled on it when he went to register a vehicle. And my mom came to stay with us while she was having some health issues, and she literally went home because she lacked the social connectedness. So, and I had no idea that this was programs were going on. So let us know how we can help you get that work out.
Okay, yeah, we are, that is another piece of our plan, it's just like, it is hard, you know, a lot of times until you need it, you're scrambling around, so it's sort of just one of those things you don't really know about, but marketing and advertising and spreading the word is part of our, you know, how are we doing that a little better, and over here, I think that's a great point, so thanks for that feedback, yeah.
And I would say probably our best advertising are the people that come. They tell their friends, and that's how they find out. And people travel up and down the valley. We have regulars that go to both sites and go into Garfield County as well. So people do travel depending on what they're looking for and traffic probably, and weather, of course. But we're menus.
And honestly, our eligible site, when I first started, we were lucky to have about 30 people, and now we are like pushing the envelope. We do about 70 meals a day.
Yeah.
We also do the Meals on Wheels program for this Mid-Valley, so that includes that. But I mean, Mandy, you can speak to like your group's 50-ish people pretty regularly. So it's definitely growing. So we're spreading the word somehow, but it very well might be with each other. Yeah.
Given that every time I go to the doctor, they ask when I was born. And it was July 1st, 1951. And my mother was born in 1931. And my mother-in-law was born in 1920.
Oh.
So I have one that's 104 years old, one that's 95. The 104-year-old is still in her home with support. My mother's transitioning to assisted living. I'm going through the experience right now of finding out what it's like to be in that place. That luckily my mom set herself up with some success in a place back east that's very affordable and has a lot of support and a very good system to process people through the whole thing. The other thing that I've heard is a lot about the issue with gerontocracy, that people that are aging out also hold most of the leadership positions and own most of the real estate. And there's been actually podcasts and things like that to talk about, from the younger point of view, how do we keep these people out of the way. And when I decided to run again, I had a lot of feedback about that. You know, the other piece of this too is that when you're talking about aging, you're talking about yourself, is what another person told me. So that when you start to refer to elderly, mentors, whatever it is, you have to understand that in a very short period of time, you're going to be on the same boat.
Right.
I think one of the things that we learned here at the Economic Summit here that Chris and I attended last week was that the population that's aging out is also the population that's still in business. And I have a lot of demands on my time to come to work with people just based on the background that I have. And I've chosen to do that, and I get paid more than I did when I was
Right, there you go.
So, I think that one of the things that we talked about in the past is the idea of social capital, and what kind of social capital do elderly people bring to the community. And the governance and leadership structures currently in the state and across the country don't allow those folks to participate very easily. You know, we have a number of examples of collaborations: wildfire, drought, aging, housing, and they all seem to follow the same roadmap with the same governance model and the same structure. And it's just, to me, there's got to be a shift in all those things. One of the things Basalt's struggling with is funding, of course, because we have 3 or 4 priorities we've stated. But I think we're trying to look at what will give us a broader base, to launch out of, so that we can build support for our older population. And, Crown Mountain and that whole resource is probably one of the biggest advantages we have in terms of being able to provide recreation, socialization, all those things to our people, including transportation, grocery store, the whole 9 yards. We've talked about sites for senior housing forever. You know, you can't build your way out of it, always seems to come back and smack you down. You know, but truth is, things like property tax relief, those kinds of things can really be helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
And nobody's lowering their taxes on anybody's property right now. But if we have good opportunities here for designating your home as an RO and getting funding so that you could sell later, but still have enough money to live. You know, nobody, I don't know too many people who need to sell their house and sell for $3 or $4 million to be able to sustain them in 10 years in a home somewhere. So anyway, when you get there, all of a sudden your whole mindset changes about this. How can you push back to be able to maintain some vitality and some quality of life? And obviously, if you're good physical conditioning, you enjoy yourself and do what you do, great. There are a lot of partnerships where one person is not advancing as well or maintaining as well as the other person. That's another significant sort of how do you support the person that's the support person while they're taking care of a person that really needs a lot of support.
Right.
That seems to be a trending issue as well.
Yeah.
So,
Or they're both going downhill
yeah.
really quickly at the same time, which is my parents at the moment. And it's like, whoa, you know, you usually have one or the other, and if they're both struggling together, it's really, really tricky and becomes very, very expensive is what I'm finding. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
I think what also was discussed at this economic summit was these initiatives to implement them has been talked about now to the point where there's so many initiatives that we want to implement that you can't hardly get to any of them. So somewhere we gotta go, okay, this was, we gotta start to collaborate in order to solve some of these problems. Because our economy will change, and we're not gonna be able to bring people in to the state of Colorado like we have been to support these tourism industries and service industries, small businesses like we did when we were all 20 when we moved here in the 70s.
Right.
So
It's changing a lot.
it's changed a lot. So thank you for coming in and
Thank you guys for having us
Yeah,
and listening. Thanks.
I really appreciate you guys coming to your presentation. I think I used to volunteer for Meals on Wheels. There's a lot in here that I think is win-win. Kind of to your point, it's good for aging populations and good for everybody. So there's a lot of stuff in here that's like very easy to support. A couple of things I just wanted to kind of highlight, like going through in the outdoor space of the building, you're talking about sidewalk maintenance and pedestrian infrastructure. I would just encourage you to also consider bike lanes and e-bike education regulation.
Yeah.
I know in your demographic, I know a bunch of very fit individuals who are very active. I saw this stuff in here about like the volunteer driving programs, the volunteer support programs, and then talking about celebrating the contributions of older adult volunteers, but also encourage you to celebrate the contributions of those volunteers that are doing the drivers, that are doing the support programs. I think it's not just recognizing their contributions, but that's also kind of like advertising. I didn't know you did that kind of stuff. And I see you celebrate somebody who's doing it, and maybe I can say, I want to get involved in this as well.
Right.
I thought the part where you're talking about exploring intergenerational and shared housing models, such as home sharing ADUs, very interested to hear kind of what you find from that.
Yeah, there's actually a business on the Front Range called Sunshine Home Share, and they do it, and they come from like a social work background. So it's a really interesting kind of social work housing collaboration that they are who we are. Not that they would come up here, but it's just really to pick their brains and see how could we replicate what they're doing in our communities. So.
I'd like to learn more.
Okay.
I also like the part where you're talking about considering for the workforce housing regulations, considering alternatives like volunteer hours or long-term residency as eligibility factors. I think that can be very important. I love the part about all this stuff, making it multilingual. And then the other part I just wanted to highlight, it kind of comes into your community health services, but I just kind of like brought up the first one, that not minimizing the caregiver support, and not just caregivers, but it's family members, it's neighbors. And I think that, to me, also ties a lot into kind of mental health support and suicide prevention, some of these conversations. affects a lot of folks. And so
That's
I
true.
think we can really all be looking at things that's help a lot of folks. And make it very easy.
Supporting each other across the board for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing, in case it's not on your radar, but maybe you've heard of it. Have you heard of the friendship bench?
I mean, I have heard of that type of a model, yeah,
I came
yeah.
across that the other day,
Uh-huh.
and so for anybody who doesn't know, it's a program that started in Zimbabwe, but it started with training like older community members in how to listen like a social worker would, so that they can be a bench and somebody can walk up and they can get some mental health support. And now they have a few friendship benches in the United States. And I thought, since you're already doing so many classes over at the Eagle County building, and the park is right there, I thought for a community that has, an aging population and, our access to mental health care can be really challenging. It can be tricky, for anybody to access. I just thought it was a really sweet model of utilizing older adults and their wisdom to, help people out when they're in a mental health.
Thank you, that's a great idea. And a lot of times people feel, I don't know what it is, right, older adults, depending on who they are, it's like people are drawn to talking with them, so it is a good thing to remember, so
Like
thanks
us.
for bringing that up. Like us.
Yeah.
But I've been doing that since I was 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, thanks.
Thank you both for coming out this evening and sharing everything with us. I hope the feedback was good. I certainly enjoyed hearing from you and learned a lot.
Good.
And, so, it was nice having you here.
Thanks for your
Thanks for
time.
having us,
Yeah.
yeah. Kelly?
Stop by at Cotter's Corner across the street.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so we passed over item 6B, which is a chamber presentation on blueprint data. I don't know if Chris, if you've resolved the audio issues or not. I mean, I don't know if we want to. If not, it would be better to reschedule whenever everybody can participate fully. But,
I did reach out to Amy, if we could dial in, great, if it doesn't work, both the next two council meetings do work for her.
Great.
So if it's,
Yeah, we do have some time on the June 9th meeting. I was looking at if we wanted to reschedule.
okay.
yeah, because I mean, if she's a co-presenter.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to give this a whirl or is it a no-go?
I don't have half the
Parts?
cabling that I
Okay.
had in here
Let's-
previously.
Then we shall
I would-
reschedule,
yeah,
I'll let her know.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah, sorry about that. Appreciate you and Amy being ready, and we'll see you on June 9th.
And the biggest difference will be, because of the deadline with the state, the rest of our deliverables will have to be completed, so it's just kind of being point of order that, unless we were supposed to do this and then do the final stuff with the state, so we'll just ask for their forgiveness,
Okay,
essentially. Thanks.
thank you for being ready, and sorry again for the technical difficulties. So next up, we're going to move to section 7, which is council actions. First up is item 7A, which is a public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 8, series of 2026. Ordinance the town council of the town of Basalt, Colorado, granting approval of the site plan review, special review, PUD amendment, and housing mitigation report for the development of one deed restricted dwelling unit at 540 Park Avenue, Basalt, Colorado. And Carlton, you are up for this one.
Carlton Henry, Planner 2 at the town of Basalt. Just to clarify for the record, it's 540 Basalt Avenue. I don't know if this is part of the agenda.
So what's the correct address?
The correct address is 540 Basalt Avenue.
Basalt Avenue.
I don't know if it says part of the agenda, but just to clarify for the record.
Thank you for that.
It also said that in the resolution.
So we'll open the
Yeah, the title of the ordinance says park, the body of it says basalt. Well, we can amend that, yeah.
All right. Again, 102 of the town of Basalt. Here for a public hearing, first reading of 540 Basalt Avenue, which is a development application for site plan review, special review, a PUD amendment and housing mitigation report at 540 Basalt Avenue. PC Development LLC, the applicant, has applied for the reviews as stated. Again, site plan, special review, PUD amendment, housing mitigation report. For the development of one deed restricted housing unit on a parcel at the northwest corner of Basalt Avenue and Few Lane in the industrial zone district in the Basalt Business Center South PUD. This is in the south side area of Basalt. The parcel is approximately 7,838 square feet in size, currently bordered by mixed-use properties to the north and to the west, with commercial, residential, and industrial uses in the general vicinity. The south side floodplain runs through the site, however, no changes to the building envelope or footprint are proposed as part of this application. Currently, the site is mixed use in nature with the rug wash business on the ground floor and an existing deed-restricted residential unit on the second floor. The applicant has proposed the addition of a 659 square foot 2-bedroom residential unit to be deed-restricted at Category 5. The property currently contains one 758 square foot 2-bedroom residential unit, which is proposed to remain. The applicant has also proposed some additional improvements to the existing deed-restricted unit, including replacement of the siding. A couple of notes. Consistency with the master plan. The site is located completely within the town's urban growth boundary, and the site has already been amended to accommodate the existing residential use. However, the PUD amendment would accommodate the addition of another dwelling unit on the site. The 2020 Basalt Master Plan includes designation of the site as existing land use on the future land use map. This would continue. Staff found that the proposed development is in line with the master plan and provided a number of goals and objectives at Planning Commission, which speak to that compatibility. Those goals and objectives have also been cited in the memo. As stated, the applicant proposes this one residential unit to be deed restricted at Category 5. The waterfall for the community housing priorities would be the same, with the exception that the employer, property owner, would have the first category, so that would be added ahead of the rest of the priorities for the deed restriction. Those priorities are included in the draft ordinance. There is no real unit mix proposed as part of this, as it is just one residential unit that is proposed. Other items to note for discussion, the proposed development was found to be in compliance with the minimum livability requirements in the community housing guidelines. This application was seen at both BOC and Planning and Zoning Commission, and as mentioned, was in compliance with the livability requirements. The applicant is requesting a 25% reduction in parking as made available in the land use code for mixed use projects. After discussion at Planning and Zoning Commission, the applicant was willing to consider a parking sharing agreement with the adjacent property owner. Staff received a copy of that, but not in time to get into the packet, and so we'll provide that at second reading. I think that's pretty much it for teeing you guys up. Happy to answer any initial questions. Otherwise, we do have the applicant team here, Patrick Raleigh of Raleigh Design, as well as the architect and the property owner to answer any questions you may have.
You guys have any comments or anything to add to comments?
We do have a brief presentation that we can go through.
Please do.
So if I can share my screen. So it's exciting when this happens.
We've had such a good one.
Yeah, right.
I was in my office, I was like, I don't hear anything, is it just me? So for the record, my name is Patrick Raleigh, Raleigh Design Planning. I'm joined by Willis Pember of Willis Pember Architects, the designer of the unit. And Paul Cathers is also in the room, so if we have any questions for Paul, the applicant, we can ask questions of him. So as Carlton pointed out, it's a PUD amendment for the additional residential unit. We are proposing this as a Category 5 deed-restricted residential unit. Would be on the 3rd floor of an existing 2-story structure. The ground floor is, as Carlton pointed out, the rug wash, and then we have an existing 2nd floor residential unit that Paul rents out currently. We're located in the industrial zone district and in the BBCS. We have met with the BBCS, the members of the BBCS, and have received approval to move forward with this application. The unit is not for mitigation. This is a unit that is intended to house the employees of Paul Cathers, who operates Cathers Homes next door. But this is not in connection with any other development. Also, as Carlton pointed out, we did go to BOC and we got a 6-0 approval from them, and we did meet with the planning and zoning, and we also got a 6-0 approval from P&Z. So good stuff. There's the site outlined in yellow right there, Basalt Avenue. So for reference, this is the Basalt Park and Ride. Here's the crossing of Highway 82. We're about 700 feet from the parking right, so it's really an ideal spot for an employee housing unit to be located. That's about a 3-minute ride to, or 3-minute walk to the bus. We have several encumbrances on the property that kind of direct how development can happen, which is largely up. So you have an existing curb cut. There's actually 2 curb cuts, one here and one there existing. We're proposing to close that 2nd curb cut that I have highlighted and landscape that area. There's large coniferous trees that will be protected as well. We do have a 25-foot building setback off of Basalt Avenue. And on top of that, we have a large species landscape and pedestrian easement per the BBCS. So all landscaping will be compliant with that. And then we have the small species and pedestrian easement located there. So you can see that really the site is one direction, and that's to do the third story. And finally, we have this water line easement down at the point, the southern point of the property. Here is the view looking towards the south. So as if you're going towards the high school, you can see the proposed unit on top of the existing 2nd floor. And then here's a rendering that Willis has prepared of a view looking north. So you can see the existing rug wash with their commercial entrance. The unit, the existing 2nd story unit is, because of this view, is difficult to see, but then there's the proposed 3-story unit off of this generous outdoor patio space. So this is the landscape plan, site plan. We have an existing storage shed. It's largely like a tough shed. About 100 square feet that will be made available to the residents. The existing residents utilize some of that. That's going to be kind of some additional storage that we have on site. We have an existing deck on the 2nd floor, which will be expanded. It's currently about 230 square feet. We're going to expand that to 564. It'll be provided with a decking, so it'll be really useful for the residents, and some nice shade sails out there. With you can see a planted edge that's kind of creating safety and also just a nice amenity for people to go. Do we have? There's also an additional deck immediately off of the unit up on the 3rd floor that would just be for the 3rd floor residents. We have those 6 parking spaces. 2 will be added, and additional will be added to the adjacent parcel right here where I'm indicating with my laser pointer. We have a signed agreement. Paul controls both properties, so 2 of those spaces will be dedicated to the building for additional parking. Here's with the proposed unit. I'll turn it over to Willis to walk us through this.
Hi. The new unit, as Patrick and Carlton has described, is 659 square feet, so it's a very small unit. Even relative to the one downstairs, it's slightly smaller, but doesn't exceed the footprint of the unit below. And we've provided 50 square feet of dedicated storage as part of the BOC design community leadability standards that were reviewed at that meeting. And that is the additional square footage for outdoor space is circled in this image here that Patrick just described as being solely for their the owner's third floor, exclusively for their use. Patrick just circled the housing livability standards. We've met or exceeded all of these standards. And one point of discussion in the BOC meeting was the minimum size of a range, which is only 24 inches in the design standards. And so we're aiming to exceed that and make it at least 32, as 24 for a two-bedroom, 1.5 bed apartment. Seems pretty small. In the apartments I've lived in, 24 inches just wouldn't cut it. We've exceeded the outdoor area requirements by a multiplier. I'm not sure what that is, but the outdoor space requirements for private outdoor space for apartments in the housing stock is quite small. It's really the size of just a balcony, but with this dedicated deck to the north of the living room and a shared triangular deck that we're improving over an existing membrane roof, it's going to be enormously useful for outdoor activity in this building. The kind of the range of the effort in the design was not simply to design the floor plan of the living room, but it was to take a whole look at Cather's home in addition to the rug wash building and make strategic improvements that would benefit the whole property, both the lot to the north and lot X to the south. In addition to Patrick's landscaping and planning services, we've animated the building with this ring of planters around the triangular base, if you will. The rug wash building, commercial use, acts as a podium to the upper living units. And we've carefully selected recladding materials that are both fire resistant as well as maintenance free, which add value and impact and curb appeal, if you will. The signage was reviewed as well when the engineering reviews and it was found to be compliant. And you see that noted in the detail on the bottom. I guess I'll go to the next one. That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we have had some good referral comments that we've received, and one of the comments was demonstrate the improvements are outside the map 100-year floodplain. We have done this. You can see that the zone AE is in, which is the 100-year floodplain, is in the red, and our subject site is in this green zone. So we are located outside of that. And by the way, I should note that our civil engineering drawings have been updated per some of the comments, and will be ready for building permit if approved. So provide additional parking to ensure access is unimpeded. As we've talked about, the applicant has provided a parking sharing agreement and have the ability to add the adjacent 2 parking spaces that will be convenient for the users. So the town engineer provided, some comments about driveway grading to direct all runoff into the stormwater system. So that's highlighted right there. We're accomplishing that. Existing drainage drains into the 4-inch conveyance pipes are located right there. We will provide a detailed grading plan and building permit. That's no problem. You can see the 6-inch drain inlets have been graded for traffic use or driving. We have flow well, a dry well system has been located at the site. So the project is a slab lot grade, so this dry well will be carefully reviewed. We do have a water service line. There was a question about where does the water service line is. And Sopris Engineering has identified that it comes in. Here's the water line coming off to the fire hydrant, and then it goes into the building in this vicinity on the side there. And then one question that was left unanswered is the additional EQR for the water service from Metro, and at building permit we will apply for one additional EQR to provide for this unit. We had some bollards that needed to be added around the fire hydrant. Happy to do that. We've shown that in this plan. We'll verify irrigation and ensure that everything is appropriate. Some tree removal had occurred on the adjacent property, and those trees do occur off-site, but we are also providing, to the extent that we can within those easements that I reviewed earlier, additional vegetation. The two large coniferous trees off of Basalt Avenue will be limbed up per this town's requirements to allow for pedestrian access. And the rooftop planters and the shade sails will be fire resistant per the fire marshal's requirements. And we have met the snow removal requirements for the site. And actually had circled these, I forgot. So that is the conclusion of our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions. Hopefully we've covered it. If not, we can go back.
Great. Well, this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and do the public hearing now, and then we'll get to questions and comments from council. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:42. And I don't know if anybody in the room wants to come up and speak, or if there's anybody online who would like to speak. If you're online and would like to speak, you can raise your hand. I don't know here. That's true. Thanks. I'm so used to things working. So if you're online, you're not going to be able to hear me. So I assume you can't speak either tonight. So with that, I'll close the public hearing. So 3, open it up to questions and comments from the fellow councilors.
I'll make just one quick note. Patrick did a great job of walking through the referral comments. Just to clarify for the record, sewer service at this site is Basalt Sand, not the Metro District.
Oh, yeah. In my mind, I had Ian in my mind, but yeah.
Is that EQRs for the sewer or EQRs for the water?
There's also a comment related to EQR for water, and we want to make sure.
Yes. We'll take care of that.
I just had two. One is why Cat 5? Is that just to set the standard for the...
It allows the greatest amount of latitude because this is it's not for mitigation. Box supported that because we didn't have, this isn't for mitigation, and it just gives them the most amount of latitude for Paul to put his employees in there. But it's
the other technical thing was the water services on the branch line with the fire hydrant, which is kind of off standard. And I don't know if I don't have an issue with it, but there is some risk with the fire hydrant. It's turned off and they out there without water.
That's true, yeah. So we're working with Paul Rutledge at Soper's Engineering, and we can discuss that, and all the final plans that building permit.
Are there any street cuts anticipated anywhere near there, curb improvements?
No, we're actually going to close one of the 2 existing curb cuts. If you look at this, so there's a curb cut currently underneath the coniferous trees right there. So that will be closed and turned into a landscape. So it'll just be the one access point.
And where's the fire hydrant?
And the fire hydrant is located right
So it's
here.
It's not near any other subsurface construction stuff.
No. And per fire marshal comments, we'll put those bollards up to protect that hydrant because it is our parking and accesses can come close to that.
That curb cut has this, if I recall, it's the same gutter height the whole way across. It's just an opening.
It is like an opening, in my public notice sign, you can see it rather clearly how that happens. Close that off. And so we'll close that off and landscape it.
You addressed kind of most of my questions here. I just had 2 remaining ones. One is about the occupancy priority. What were to happen if the business were to get sold separate from the residential units?
The occupancy priorities would kind of go with the property owner, so the property owner would still have the priority occupancy, and then it would get the water bowl.
But would it be possible that the residential units are sold separate, like it's totally separate, so then the property, that's not?
they can't be condo.
Okay.
They can't be condo.
Okay.
Right.
That answers that question. And then the only other question I had in the fees and surcharges part, where it says the town will exempt the applicant from the school land dedication fee if they submit a letter from the school district recommending that they do the part or all school land fees are exempted. Is that standard?
It is standard, the school doesn't typically grant waiver.
Okay, that's kind of standard. And then those fees, does that all go to the school?
They do.
Goes to the district, yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Carlton, the applicants? Otherwise, I can motion.
For the record, I am similarly concerned about the category 5. That's 150 AMIs, $187,000. If you're paying an employee $187,000, I would like to come work for you. That's also about $4,000 in rent for a 1-bedroom income cap, so that seems like a lot. And I just want some assurance that we aren't using affordable housing as a way to get what we want.
I agree with you. I mean, the 4 apartments that we have above Cather's home.
I don't know if it works.
So it doesn't work. All of this sounds good. Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Anyways, there's 4 apartments there, and 2 are 22 and 2 are $2,500 a month, 2-bedroom lofts, and I mean, they're beautiful. They're bigger than the other ones that we're going to be building. So my hope is that they're going to be probably in the 30s, in the 3,000. So.
And I can just respond to add a little bit of color. The BOC committee discussed the category and didn't have an issue with it primarily because these are optional. You know, the construction of this deed restricted unit is not required. It's not part of another mitigation effort. And so BOC felt that it's just a good thing for our side to get an opt-in deed restriction.
If this unit was proposed as just a market rate unit, would we still be having this conversation?
The process would be different, that's for sure.
It's actually in the BBCS, it's all residential units have to be an EDU, so that's why we're here as a deed restricted unit under our covenants.
Thank you.
And I'd note that it does kind of fit in the typology 3, you know, just putting the residential with, you know, people are working with the commercial that's in it. So it's a good, I think, example in the master plan of the typology.
So just something what we're looking at is this, we move this along to the second reading. That second reading would address the address mix-up part, and then there's also going to be the parking easement on the neighboring property will be included in Grace
Agreement.
Yeah, and the public notice for this application did have the correct address. This is just a type of a packet.
Do we need an amendment in motion for that, or?
So your motion could include an amendment to include the parking sharing agreement, and then we can just fix the typo.
I was curious, this kind of tags on Ali's question of essential employees working in Basalt, what percentage might be category 5? You don't have to answer that now, but for next time, I'd love to get a better read on that.
And that's of essential employees?
Yeah, or of nonprofit, or let's see, essential employees working in Basalt or outside of Basalt and in the Roaring Fork Valley. I was just curious what rough percentage of essential employees might be in that category 5 zone.
I'd imagine there's some STEM folks in that category, you know. You said 187. It'll be interesting to see, but I bet there's some out there.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm comfortable making a motion unless anyone has other comments. Mayor, I move that the Town Council approve ordinance number 8, series of 2026 on first reading and continue and set public hearing and second reading for May 26, 2026, inclusive of the parking amendment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Penny, please call the roll.
Yes, absolutely. Let's begin with Chris Stevens,
Yes.
Ray Schafran,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Elise Howell,
Yes.
Hannah Berman,
Yes.
and Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have item 7B, which is a public hearing and first reading ordinance number 9, series of 2026. Ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, creating a PUD amendment to install a vehicle gate in the Riverwalk at the Frying Pan development, 227 Midland Avenue, Basalt, Colorado. And James, this is yours.
Yes, thank you. We have the applicants here this evening. We've got Patrick Rowland and we've got John Patrick presenting today. This item is a public hearing and a first reading of the ordinance that we approve of Riverwalk Property Owners Association's request to install a vehicular gate on the Riverwalk parking lot at 227 Midland Avenue. As background, Riverwalk currently manages the parking in their private parking lot with a permitting system, and they wish to install a gate for a more efficient and effective parking management. You can see the gate proposed here past the 7 parking spots in the parking lot. Process-wise, it's a PUD amendment that is required to amend the site-specific development. And P&Z provided referral comments and a referral recommendation. P&Z recommended accepting the PUD amendment with the conditions that you have in your draft ordinance. In reviewing the application, staff identified a couple of discussion items, including compliance with the master plan. As was noted in the staff memo to the P&Z, the 2007 master plan had language discouraging gates. That language discouraging gates was not carried over into the 2020 master plan. And staff notes that some other private parking lots may make similar requests for a gate, but each of those individual requests would be considered on their own merits. So this would be a requested scenario. Several referral agencies weighed in on the application and provided comments. The fire district indicated that they needed a Knox box on the gate for their access. The police department and public works indicated that they needed a code to access through the gate in emergency and maintenance scenarios. And also the police department wanted a turnaround for vehicles that couldn't go through. So the applicant submitted their proposal to include a turnaround, as you can see here. And all these requirements were included in the conditions of approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission, in reviewing the application, recommended accepting the amendment with the conditions, and an additional condition that the gate be adjusted to allow for bicycles to pass through it. So the applicant has been working on that and can provide an update. But that's included as a draft condition of approval in the ordinance as well. So this evening, staff would recommend that you hear comments from the applicant, take public comments, and provide discussion on the request. If you're comfortable, ultimately, you could approve the ordinance on the first reading. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen.
Patrick, do you have anything in the presentation for this one too?
I do.
Okay.
You got that? Okay, yeah, for the record, again, Patrick Raleigh. I'm joined by Kevin Patrick, who is the board president. I'm also on the board of the Riverwalk, and I'm also an owner in the building. Janet is also on the board, and she's joining us. We also have several other members of the board. that are trying to listen. And James, I don't know, we also have a member of our property management team who would like to present, so I believe Nick Kova is on. And he can't even hear through Zoom either. Okay, so sorry Nick, I'm looking through there. So again, the overview of this is an installation of an automatic parking gate to really essentially support our established parking rules. You can see that bright red sign. Those signs have been placed throughout our parking area for many years, and they're generally not heated, particularly in the summertime and through other times. If you spend any amount of time in our parking lot, you'll see a lot of people coming to coach parking. We're here, we're not making it a mission or a waiver that the installation of this gate constitutes a substantial amendment to the existing PUD approvals. We believe that we have the right to do that, but we're here in the sense of community to come and meet with you. The installation of the gate, I think this is a very important aspect, really supports our approvals. The Riverwalk at the Frying Pan was an approved PUD. The town of Basalt approved it, and it has a certain number of parking spaces that were baked into that approval. The illegal or the unauthorized use of this parking affects and impacts our approvals and doesn't allow us to carry, to actually follow what was approved by the town. So this parking gate will actually support our existing approvals. Parking in our private parking lot is by permit only. We have strictly enforced parking regulations. Nick Kova, who is with our property management team, was planning on being here to discuss the various things that he has done, and in addition to some of the board members have done to try to regulate parking and ensure our existing regulations are followed. We do have, unfortunately, though, constant pressure from unauthorized parking. This is made worse sometimes in the summer, but it's really throughout the year. There are times where parking is not available for the tenants, the occupants, the owners of our units. And it's a very frequent occurrence that people come in and park and then go next door to the Tipsy Trout or go across the street to a business. So it is a rather concerning issue for us. There has been some discussions that, gates are not necessarily in the community, in a community sense. Well, community really does cut both ways. Those who use our parking under unauthorized circumstances are not being community-minded themselves. They're taking what someone else needs and has purchased a property, a unit in the building. That's a big basis for why people are in our buildings, because we had parking provided for us in the PUD. So similar to somebody living next door and they have a large boat and they can't put their family vehicle, parking in your driveway wouldn't be acceptable. It's a very similar situation that we have here at Riverwalk. As James pointed out, we do have a mixed use and commercial residential development. The parking, as you can see, is a total of 87 total spaces. So here is the parking. We are made up of 2 buildings, actually 3 buildings. This is the building that houses monkeys, for instance. This has the gun shop and the fly fishing, and then this is Kevin's water law building located in the back. So all of this 87 parking spaces are for those 3 buildings. We have 63 parking spaces located here that are for the tenants and owners and employees. We have 10 guest spaces, so there's 7 up here and then several guest spaces smattering throughout that are for the guests of tenants of the building. And then we have a subgrade parking garage also that is under this western building, 24 spaces. This was a final PUD. You're actually looking at the final PUD development plan, which specified this parking in which we are trying to enforce. And finally, I should point out that also part of the PUD approvals is that a public access easement was allowed, permitted by the Riverwalk to access the swinging bridge, and that will be maintained and will be the point for pedestrians to continue to pass through our We have updated our parking regulations recently. We've taken a look at the issues that we've had. We've had multiple board meetings about this, and we have issued a revised parking regulations that everybody has access to. We do have ongoing efforts to educate the owners, the tenants, and the public about our parking requirements. So we have permits, all vehicles need to have this red sticker in it. You have notices of violations that are posted by our property management team for unauthorized vehicles. If they don't have a sticker, it's presumed that they are not authorized. We have requested our neighboring businesses to please follow our parking regulations and not use our parking because it does take away from the occupants of our building and the practice of their business. And in the past, we have booted various vehicles. It's not something that we want to do now, and we wish to head this off with a more readily available solution by putting up this parking gate. But as you can see, these parking efforts have really not worked entirely well. We have, as I've said, a parking scarcity at various times. You can see here's a vehicle that doesn't have a red sticker. We have other large work trucks that are often parked on the side that are unauthorized. Here's a picture in the wintertime. You can see those are overnight parking. Those are cars that have been parked there for some time, not tied to an occupant of the building. Here's a large van, again, behind a snowbank with a violation in the window. That hasn't moved. And then you have, obviously, trailers associated with fishing dories or some other use that frequently are in our parking spaces. So it's a well-documented issue that we have. Here's so this is the existing conditions. Here's Midland Avenue at the top and the parking access that people are familiar with, swinging bridges located roughly down here at the bottom of the page. Here's that pedestrian access easement. So the plan is this is where the general location of the parking gate would be, and this has been carefully considered with the fire marshal and access in mind. So we have the existing guest parking that is located in the first tranche of parking as you come in off of Midland Avenue. We're going to slightly reconfigure that we're not losing any parking when we do reconfigure that to allow for this gate. We do have sufficient, one of the comments that we received was, is there a sufficient amount of space for vehicles to queue in front of the gate if there is some reason why someone is not able to get through or it's taking some time, how many vehicles can stack up, and it's at least 3 vehicles. You can see these tire tracks, there's 2, 3, and it's likely 4 vehicles could queue before anybody starts to spill out on Midland. That's probably an unlikely situation, but we do have enough room for queuing to occur. Another concern was, what if somebody comes up to the gate and they're not able to get through for one reason or another? We are taking one of the existing parking spaces, this is the reconfiguration of those parking spaces, and turning this into a striped turnaround zone. So you can see a vehicle that is not able to get through the gate can pull into this space and then go back out. Or to drive out. The automated gate, so this is an existing bump out. The gate will be located right here. This is currently a parking space. This is actually a vegetated bump out. So we're going to swap those. And as we've looked at this, we've taken videos. I happen to have a Chevy Suburban, which has the worst turning radius known to man. You need it for kids, though. I've utilized that vehicle to kind of execute all of these various traffic movements, and even with that large vehicle, I can do it safely, easily, with a minimum of difficulty. So what we will be doing is changing one of the, so we can actually, and because of this, we can neck down this vegetated island, which would contain the other side of this gate, and allow for, the same amount of parking to be provided. One of the comments was allowing bicycles to pass through here. We do not wish to provide some type of pass-through around this gate for bicycles. One, this is a vehicular zone. We don't think that it's safe. And we have this existing pedestrian access where a bicycle rider can simply dismount, which is the appropriate thing to do, and walk their bike through the pedestrian easement that already exists. So rather than invite an issue with allowing bicycles to come through there, we will direct people to dismount their bicycle and use the pedestrian easement that exists today. And then beyond that, the parking remains unchanged. Same amount of parking that was approved by the PUD initially for this project. This is the proposed gate. Just to kind of understand, it's a dual scissor gate arm, so there'll be two little kiosks on either side. The scissor type lift is preferable because of the shorter moment arm, and it's easier on the motors and whatnot. So you have two arms that would come down. The gate would be activated by several means. One would be a radio frequency chip that can be placed on the car. So if you are an owner, you'll be given one of these chips, and you just come up to it and the gate will open. Those are somewhat pricey, so the alternative to that will be a smartphone-enabled app. So employees or other people that don't have the RF chip simply will have a smartphone app and open up the gate from that by that means. This smartphone app can also be with dedicated codes, so you can give them out to your other employees or visitors that are coming in that are authorized to come in and utilize the parking spaces. The concern, and I should point out, in the specifications, this is fire marshal approved, but on top of that, met with Brooke Stott and reviewed the location of the gate. She was fine with that. She provided this letter, and we're happy to provide a Knox box that will provide access for emergency responders to get in. That's a very standard procedure for any type of gate. The town of Basalt has the cost to come into the parking lot. We'll be happy to give them a dedicated code so that Public Works, any town officials that need to get into the parking area for one reason or another will have access without an issue. And then the Basalt Sanitation District, as we saw, I had Ian in my head. Ian is actually, the offices are in our building, and he was like, hey, we have no problem getting to our facilities that are located back there, but in any event, they would have a dedicated code as well. So anybody that needs to get in will have the ability to get in. And then finally, we have given, it's a permissive use. Use is permissive by policy of the Riverwalk Board. The St. Vincent's Catholic Church across the street does utilize the parking under this tacit agreement on Sundays for when the congregation gathers. We will honor this and allow the gate. The gate can be programmed to be open at various times. So on a Sunday between 8 and 12 or whatever it might be, the gate will be open so that the parishioners can use the parking lot as they have in the past. So in summation, the benefits, this gate ensures that the PUD approvals which allowed or provided for this amount of parking are followed, and that the parking for the owners, tenants, and authorized visitors of the Riverwalk and frying pan is always going to be there. We think that this gate will enhance the safety by controlling unwanted overnight parking. That is an issue that we have. We sometimes have sprinter vans parked overnight, people camping. It's a nice spot by the river, but that is an issue for our tenants, and it's a concern. Also, by protecting or by limiting access, I think the public access easement will be safer. Cars often go zooming through, and a lot of kids use this and are crossing down by the swinging bridge, and God forbid anything happens. So by controlling some of the access to this parking area, I think that the safety of the pedestrian easement and the pedestrians using the swinging bridge will be enhanced. And this just goes to support our ongoing efforts, which have been for many years attempting to try to enforce our parking requirements. So that will help the Riverwalk fulfill what we've been trying to do. And I can't stress enough, many of us, the parking is very important to us. We need this parking, and this is a reason why often many of us are in this building, is because it has sufficient parking. So eroding that by unauthorized use is a very big issue for us. With that, I will allow Kevin to add anything else, or we can provide, we can respond to any questions that you might have.
I want to be really brief. Thank you for letting us come here today. I'm the president of the association. We've had many meetings on this. It seems to be the one problem that we have that always comes up is parking. We had this discussed at our annual meetings. Really, it's become increasingly a problem every year. Particularly if you come into our lot 11 o'clock, noon, we can't, those of us that live there or conduct our business there, we have to go park on the street because the parking lot's full. So it is a problem, and we've tried multiple attempts. Looting, that was not pleasurable to anybody. We've tried the stickers that everyone hates on their windows. That was even worse. We've had people stand out there, and it's just, this is a softer approach. It's a defined gate that will just make it very clear that this is private property. The town of Basalt required this property to have its own parking for its tenants. We don't have that if that's being used by the public at large. We spend a lot of money annually with asphalt sealing, striping, snow plowing. This is the parking lot that we maintain because you've required us to maintain. So this is just one more effort at maintaining the parking. So we respectfully ask you to understand our plight and think positively on this. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we get to questions and comments, this is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing at 8:12 for anyone who'd like to come up and speak.
Hey guys, haven't seen you in a while. Ryan Slack. Oh yeah, turn on 3 minutes, let's go. It's great to be on this side. 609 East Soapers Drive. Number one, I support their right as a building owner, as private building, I get that. I think this is like the definition of aspiding basalt. I think a gate's just tacky. I used to have an office there and I've never seen the parking full. And all the pictures they said, I could have listened to the presentation, I'm sorry. I know, it's okay. But, you know, every picture they showed, there's parking spaces next to all those cars. So that's just my comment. As someone that does park there in the morning, try to park up, there's the lot's empty. It's a great access to Swinging Bridge. So that's all I wanted to say. So I get it's their right, but I just think it's something, it's just a slippery slope. What are we gonna do? Start putting gates over here, or like everything's now gonna be gated access. It just seems weird. I'm sure there's access for the fire department stuff with keys, but I just think it's like it's something I don't want to personally see in Basalt as a citizen. So that's what I got. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good luck.
Anyone else? Anyone else? I think we're still not really functioning online. So
I'm going to say something.
oh, please. Yeah.
I'm Janet Lightfoot. I am a board member. I purchased my property.
Can you give us your address, too, please?
I'm sorry, what?
Address, too, please.
I'm sorry?
Your address.
Janet Lightfoot? What?
What's your address?
Your physical
What's,
address.
oh, I am at 231-101. I'm in building 231 below Basalt Fireworks.
Okay.
And I just purchased my spot 101 in September. And before I was above the Tipsy Trout, and that was becoming a total nightmare over there. And luckily I was able to afford to move my showroom. I do cabinets and window coverings. Moved my showroom. The space was available. I was able to afford to buy it. And I love it. But the one thing I noticed when I moved in September was parking. And I would walk around and I would count the number of cars parked illegally. 14, 18, no stickers, people leaving to go over to the Tipsy Trout and have lunch because there was no parking in that parking lot. And basically, I just saw that it was gonna get worse. And so, you don't pay what I paid for a commercial spot and drive in and not find a parking spot when we own the spot. Riverwalk owns the parking lot, period. There is no gray area there. So, I think that this is gonna work. And the only other option is to start towing, getting a towing company and just have them come every day and just tow all the cars away. And how is that gonna affect the community? That's not gonna be cool, but we do have the right to do that. So let's make it simple. When I bought my property and they told me what was happening, I said, this will work. And so we need it. We have to have it. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I think we'll close the public hearing. Sorry, somebody else wants to take time to do this. 8:17, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for questions from fellow councilors. I'll go ahead and ask the one that the lady asked at the beginning in the public comments. You know, why a PUD amendment for this? And I understand from the presentation that this was, you know, gates were discouraged in the previous master plan there, now they're not. Can you just give us that background of why the PUD amendment is there and that evolution?
Sure. Staff and the town attorney interpreted that a PUD amendment is required to add the gate because the original site-specific development plan for the PUD did not include a gate. Also, there are some adjustments to the way the parking lays out, so that also is part of the justification of the PUD. So generally, it's a change in the site-specific development. Except it is private parking, so they do have the ability to restrict the parking.
And kind of related to that, with there's guest parking outside the gate, and I don't know if you can disentangle the parking spaces from the original application, but is there enough guest parking to meet the off-street requirements of customers who come to the businesses in the community? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the applicant is probably better suited to address that.
Well,
I'll just as a use case, there's a oral surgeon in there, right? And we go and park back in there somewhere on the way to school or something sometimes. And it's been a while, but so is there still, is there enough parking outside the gate and off the street, right? Because there's an off-street parking requirement for those customers who are coming to the businesses in those buildings.
Well, I was going to say one of the cold hard realities of those guest parking spaces is they're often filled by people not visiting our building. We witnessed that. So those parking spaces are not available. But a bona fide guest that is authorized to come in could have a pass to come into our parking area. In the summertime, even as an owner there when I come in, there have been times where I've been forced to go out and not park in the parking lot because it's full of people not authorized to be there. So this starts to impinge upon the off-street parking that's available for the general public. But if we had the management, if we had this gate and restricted that, we would have enough parking.
Would you
If I may say one thing, we have the 7 spaces or so outside, but those are guests and for tenants and for their customers. Every tenant then also will have a code. And if you go to the dentist, he's going to give you a code. and you just go to the kiosk and punch the code
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that's all kind of,
in. And with the 87 parking spaces, that would be enough if they're not taken up by the general public.
by people that aren't,
Right.
don't have any business in those three buildings. So if that's an option that customers can get a code from any store or wherever.
Right, and
Gathering store, because those are longer sessions, and we just don't want to kind of push everybody out the street.
No, we really do research the types of gates and the companies. And these are codes that can be set on a monthly basis, so you can change them if you find the people are poaching the code. But basically, you can set it just with your phone, with your app, and then give that code out, and someone can come and use that code.
Yeah, that could be a pretty automated process, pretty automated digital process. If you're coming to visit, here's a code.
right, yeah, you know, hey, here's your equipment, here's your code to get into the gate, and you're in. And if we have a gate, that's 100%. You're coming to see your dentist, you have a spot to park in, and you're not going to be taking a 2-hour parking space out on the street, which doesn't hurt.
Thanks for that. Other questions?
Yeah, we've had some gates installed in places where trespass was happening. And one of the things we saw was the code would be passed around to other people who need access to utilize whatever we get into the detail. So we included license plate readers that open the door, and also cameras to see if someone was coming in there using another code. The vehicle wasn't registered, then we could make the connection to the trespass. The other thing, that was one of the first projects that came to town, and actually replaced Wolf's Cabins. It was a log cabin, mobile home park kind of combination in the lowest level of the property, way below the elevation of the avenue. And the result of the review process there was we went to mixed-use parking models. We also had a much denser project utilizing more of the river setback that is there now. And one of the improvements that was made was the steps from Riverside Drive down into there and the Riverside Trail. And then during COVID, the bridge was rebuilt a while ago. But during COVID, we were trying to encourage people to park in the elementary school parking lot in the summer. And we worked hard on that section of trail coming down the stairs across the bridge. But then you kind of get to a no man's land. We did approach, I think it was Romero, if they still managed the building, about improving that section of trail that runs parallel to the river. And the comment from the HOA at the time was that they didn't want to encourage pedestrian activity on the property. So now I'm kind of hearing a different tune, that you would continue to encourage pedestrian movements through there, as it is a pretty nice connection to walk from that side of town, through town, park up in the school parking lot. It does need a little love. Also, the exit to go to Tipsy is pretty rough. That could be cleaned up. I know the adjacent property over there in that little building has done some pretty nice improvements. Maybe they jumped on board to clean that up. So those are things I look at. And then coming from church, I think it's great you guys are sticking with that because that is a community necessity. And also, you get a little lost coming off that last section of sidewalk into the parking lot to the swimming bridge. So maybe that can be defined better with some crossing or something like that across the parking lot.
Yeah, there is some existing striping there, but it's been more than 100%. A lot of people do use it, and we're happy that that's a connection through the property.
It kind of drains the whole elk front end right into town.
Yeah, it really is. It's just.
So you naturally walk that and then take the bike into the Salt Center Circle, and that's kind of feels natural.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm not talking concrete or anything, but a better soft surface structure.
We have enhanced those, I don't know if the last time we were down there, but the Crusher Pine Trail has been enhanced, and it's quite walkable. I often take phone calls out there and things like that. So it is walkable, and it does connect up to the bridge and over you know, to the adjacent parcel. So I do see people frequently walking their dog.
Yeah, the
So that's
surface,
amenity.
surface is pretty good, but it is kind of ambiguous going in our parking lot right now, the Salters.
Yeah, yeah. And, but the kids use it. The kids use it a lot, and that's one of the reasons for this gate is, you know, there's a lot of cars that are zooming around and looking for parking spaces. And the kids coming through there, it's not a protected area, and you're kind of not anticipating that if you're coming through and looking for a parking space.
Other questions or comments?
Well, I think, the reason kids are coming through there is because a lot of them get picked up off the swinging bridge after school. So some of those people who are in the parking lot, parents, they're certainly not moving around. I spend a lot of time in that parking lot. I meet my kids there a lot. I haven't seen it full. I don't see it full in your example photos. I'm concerned about what happens when somebody gets to the gate and they can't access it and there's one or two cars behind them. Because it's narrow there, and if you got into a situation like that, then you have people backing out onto Midland, and you haven't solved for that issue, and it's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, the parking lot does fill up actually, and come in the summertime, it's full.
But the summer, the highest time in the summer months, if there's, was it 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
It can be meaningful for a tenant of the building.
I understand, I don't wanna be creating a safety issue when there's a gate and you've got 2 cars lined up, because maybe the person in the second car does have to go, but maybe the first person doesn't. You know, what's happening when people are backing out onto Midland and you've got pedestrians there? You know, speaking of kids, they're walking out, they're going to the art base. I get it that there's a turnaround for one car, but I don't think that's the only safety issue to solve for.
Well, as I said, there's room for at least 3 cars or more to queue, as you can see in the image that you have in front of you. It's easy enough for a car to back up, to allow a car to, as we all do in the parking structure, where you have a restricted aisle lane. There's also additional space that you can pull to the side and allow a car to pull through. So I think the movements are acceptable. There's not a huge crush of queuing, so I think you can easily back up. And again, I've tested these movements with a really large Suburban, and it's easily handled. And you know, there were other cars coming through when I was testing this, and there was no problem to pull my Suburban over to the side while another car goes through. So I think we hear you, and I think that's a valid concern, but I think we have enough space that it won't be an issue. And a low enough of a volume on any given moment to allow cars to back up.
Can I ask when you started to see this situation happening? Like when the building was there since 1996 and it's 2026. So when did this issue start happening? And I will go ahead, full disclosure, say the reason I'm asking this question is because the town of Basalt has been under construction now for several years, and I'm wondering if this is just kind of an unfortunate, side effect of all of that that's going on, but then eventually it will remedy itself.
I have been on the board since buying the building in 2007. I think that was the year we bought. And it has been a problem since then. It has progressively gotten worse. To be honest, it has gotten worse as a result of the streetscape project that took parking out of downtown and pushed it to the edges. So that has caused additional pressure on the lot. But it really dates back 15 years. It's just gotten progressively worse.
And does this parking lot also cover 231? Because I think you mentioned that you were 231. So I know that there's a new yoga studio in 231. That could be 20 to 30 people in a class, 20 to 30 new cars in the lot. could that potentially also be causing problems? Like, how is that gonna be solved?
That
for?
just opened in the last week.
Yeah, no, I
And-
realize that, but like,
And we've already talked to the person who has this yoga studio and advised them that we can't have 30 people showing up in the parking lot. So I believe that they've told their people to park elsewhere on the street.
And or use alternative means. I think
Yeah.
that was the other is, walk, bike. There's probably a large clientele would be in Basalt, so be able to do that. But yeah, we have addressed that.
And a lot of those people, I think, from what I understand, 2 people I've talked to, they are people that work in town and just walk over and do
On that note, how do you determine which businesses get how much parking? Like you say that if the yoga studio can't let their yoga people park there, but maybe someone looking at cabinets would want to park next to that. How are you guys determining who gets the spots, who's a tenant, and which tenants don't get to utilize the parking for their clients?
There's a process. You come to the property management company and request a permit. They take a look at how many permits you already have. We have gotten to the point to restrict that because we haven't needed to in terms of, no one's asked for more than what is reasonable. One of the last board meetings, we started considering that at some point in time, we're going to be having to do it on the basis of square footage. We know that. But right now, we haven't had a business like the yoga studio that we just mentioned. We haven't had that kind of business. So we've been on the cusp. The only time we are having this severe parking problem is literally 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock. It's lunch hour. It's people coming in and then taking up the spaces where we can't find a parking space. I mean, literally, I arrange my appointments, so I don't leave, because I get there at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't leave in the middle of the day because I know I'm not getting back in.
how many residential units did you say there were?
There's 3, and then
We're at the middle of the project, it's gonna be happening.
I want to say it's
Like,
8 maybe, 8 residential units maybe.
Yeah, I believe that's accurate.
And what's the parking requirement for that?
They're 200 units, I believe, so that would be like 16 spaces.
And then there's 87 total, you said?
87 total parking spaces.
And a lot of those people have spaces in the garage. They've purchased, so the parking is condominiumized inside. So they've actually purchased that space.
Okay, so of those 16, some of those are not even using the actual 16 spaces in the.
Their guests would be, but they usually will have their own space in the garage. Residences.
I'm wondering, can I? Okay, sorry. I'm wondering whether you would consider holding off on the gate until after the Basalt Center Circle construction is complete and seeing what that does for parking pressures. Because for sure those Tipsy Trout people are coming over because of that construction right now.
This didn't just begin.
This
This has
is
been going on. We actually had to be boot the mayor of the town of Basalt once. We didn't do it on purpose. Not actually. We didn't know that we were doing that until it got done. But it has been going on far longer than that. Project.
And another issue is the businesses on the north side of Midland, which don't have parking often, or you can walk across the street. And so that's also another pressure. It's not from the new construction, but it's an ongoing thing from building businesses on the north side as well.
I do have one comment, there's the Midland project, right, the big structure that
What I'm
has
calling Basalt Center Circle.
65 units, I'm a real estate broker also. I did a tour. I asked the broker, I said, do you have enough underground parking? They've given one reserved parking spot per unit in the listing agreement. And a 2-bedroom gets 2 reserved parking spots. And I asked the broker when I did a tour, where do you have enough parking spots in the garage and in your little, outside parking? And he goes, no, we don't. And he said, but we have 17 parking spaces that are going to be taken out of the public parking where Aspinall, Tipsy Trout, and that was approved by the town of Basalt in some minutes that I read. And so they're going to take 17 parking spots that would be going for people that are trying to go to the restaurants, go to Taylor Creek Outfitters, all of those businesses that are on the Salt Center Circle. And so those supposedly are going to close in July. And they're going to have guests. I said, what happens if I have a client and they have a 1-bedroom, but they have 2 cars? And he said, oh, they can just park anywhere out in this public parking area. And that's how they're selling those units at minimum price.
And all that parking is accessible to the entire HOA, just for changing your rights.
It is.
Particularly, basically that's all for, it's not really public, it's for the businesses that are part of that HOA.
But they basically are they're gonna block off 17 parking spaces in front of that building.
But that's how much they were entitled to. Anyway. I think one question that comes up with that is that this is not precedent setting, so can you explain that, double click on that, why if we were to approve this, this wouldn't set precedent?
Yeah, I mean, each private parking lot that we have in the downtown area has its own kind of characteristics, and most of them are site-specific development plans. Like Riverwalk, some of them, like Riverwalk, may be set up better to be able to accommodate a gate than others, from a queuing standpoint, some of them have greater public easements on them, like the Basalt Center Circle. So there's different characteristics for each of the private parking lots downtown, and some of them may not be set up very well for potential to allow for a gate. So, each application for amendments to a site-specific development plan are evaluated on their own kind of merits and consideration. So staff doesn't think this would set a precedent. Jeff, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, from a public use standpoint, the only right of public use through the parking lot at Riverwalk is through a pedestrian easement. It's a different story over at Basalt Center.
Because that's a public easement.
And some of those parking spaces are located on town property also.
Around the intersection. So you're right, they are going to park, but that's what they're supposed to do.
It's going to increase the amount of traffic, the amount of cars that are parking in Basalt when they start closing on those units in July. And that's a given. So there's going to be more people trying to find parking spots.
Yes.
I got a question. Go for it. One thing I noticed, so I appreciate the plan for the CGTV program can remain open on Sunday morning for church services, but I don't see that in the ordinance anywhere. Is there an appetite to?
No, it's permissive. We don't want to grant an absolute right to somebody. And also it affects our insurance. Just by making it permissive, it's less of a burden on us.
What time are you doing that?
We have always done this, by the way, as long as I've ever been on the board. And I think that we just have an idea, well, first of all, we'll talk to them.
Yeah, we'll work with the fair.
And find out when their first mass.
10:30 and 12:30 Spanish.
Yeah, and just Just give them what they want, because Sunday is easy for us. Most of us don't work on Sunday.
Yeah. We'll see.
You know, and if they have a special event going, they can communicate with us and we could be, amicable.
Right,
Learn about
we've dealt with
marriages.
marriages and stuff like
That's the nice thing about these program locations, is we have that flexibility.
All right, other questions? And thank you for doing that, because I know that's like a big influx in that area for a couple of hours on Sunday, and then it dissipates, so it definitely helps. So everybody appreciates you doing that. Sure you know that. Other questions or comments?
I think it'd be helpful to hear from the yoga studio next time, just to get their perspective or get their game plan to tackle that. Apart from that, no further questions on my end.
that. We'll invite them to our next board meeting.
Thank you.
This is probably not an appropriate question, but I'll ask it anyway. Would you be willing to participate in an education of just the parking issues with the school drop-off and pick-up and the concerts and the parking in the middle of England Avenue and all the other parking issues that we seem to be having, whatever comes up in the future? We're going to try to look at how we attract our guests to the community, what kind of events, what the intensity, all those things. And I think it would be good for the major property owners that have private parking lots to participate in some kind of master plan discussion. There was one done, I think, prior to the Midland Avenue improvements, that sort of looked at how we're going to push the parking out to here and there, all over the place, but there hasn't been any evaluation of how that worked. And we've got a guy that walks around sometime in the wintertime during the day. And we're talking also about maybe evenings, maybe other things like that. So, which is a funding question for us, essentially. So I'm wondering if there's a way that through this process you guys can come up with an idea on how to educate the general public about what goes on in there. And what goes on, frankly, in all the public parking places. I think that's kind of speaks to literally, Evangelist's comments about backing out. If you see a problem, how are we going to go forward to solving that? Those kinds of things. So I don't want this to be a one-time deal. Because you're right, this could change.
Well, we're members of the community. I've lived and practiced here for, date myself, well over 45 years.
A long time.
A long time. And so we're members of the community. We're more than willing to sit down and discuss things. In fact, right around 2010, we actually came to the town council and had an idea for parking in town. Parking structure, we had located 110% interest-free urban renewal funds. Proposed that the town consider that. The town wasn't receptive. We were talking about trying to look at a parking structure where the Clarks, city market or Clarks, I can't figure out which one it was now, when it closed. And I think that's a great opportunity lost. But we're members of the community. We're always open to talking and discussing things.
Remember our town planning, I submitted a 24 by 36 plan, located people, remotely, got them out of their cars, come up through the streets and create that stickiness in the town. So, we'd be happy to be a part of that.
I've got one last question for you. It says in the ordinance that the gate shall permit bicyclists to safely pass through. You were saying earlier, we no longer want to.
Yeah, we don't want to invite that. It's introducing a bicycle into a vehicular zone. And we have the pedestrian easement, and the safest thing for people to do is to dismount their bike and use the pedestrian easement. So we'd like to not invite bikes passing through and invite them to use the existing pedestrian easement.
Who's going to
Ordinance
think
will
that's
look
an attractive nuisance when you invite the bike there and be a liability? Whereas they can go right to the gate, get off the bike, walk 2 steps and they're around.
Yeah, I think my question is more like procedural, so like the ordinance we're looking at tonight is not really one of those.
That was, yeah, that was a suggestion from the Planning and Zoning Commission for us to look at that.
We could pass the ordinance out.
And then it would imply that they would have to have the gate.
They have to allow bikes. That's the way they work. That's the way I'm going to get it.
Yeah, currently the ordinance represents the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you can either approve it that way, and the applicant would be required to allow for the bicycle access, or you can amend it through your motion to remove that, which is what the applicant is basically asking for.
I don't support it as written. It's not saying you have to be biking all the time.
I'm sorry.
I said I don't support it as written. I don't think it's safe to have people biking in the parking lot.
Right.
I agree. So just don't use the pedestrian access.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of the opposite mindset on that. I mean, the bike's a vehicle.
It's true.
Yeah, so, I mean, you ride bikes everywhere here. It's, a vehicle, including e-bikes is it's the new kind of risk on the road and unfortunately the sidewalk. That's, we have kind of learned to deal with it, but those are vehicles that are, entitled to the same spaces as cars, so.
But that it's,
And I get it.
it's a private parking, it's private parking, and so, just like vehicles, cars can willy-nilly come through. And we have that grade separated easement for people to use, and it's
The
10 seconds long.
P&Z sent us that.
Yeah,
That's what
understood.
I understand how you're not wanting to put the church parking in the ordinance, I think that makes sense, but I just want to highlight, I think that's important, I appreciate that public benefit, I think that's something that means a lot. And goes a really long way, I think that's a big part of what I see.
Right.
Good.
It's a long-standing, as Kevin said, it's a long-standing policy, and we're happy to continue that.
So, pretty far over time. Motion, continue first reading, up to us. What do
I move to approve ordinance numbers
9.
2026, on first reading and continue to set the public hearing, second reading for May 26, 2026.
And before there's a second, Rick, did you want to leave in that condition 8 or omit condition 8 related to bikes around the gate? Again, there's the easement that runs through the
If a pedestrian
park.
can't get around the gate, then a bicycle can get around the gate, I guess. I mean, to me, there are pedestrian areas where bicycles don't belong, and they're in the public right of way, and to the point of a bicycle as a vehicle, is it really necessary to have them on where pedestrians are walking? It happens out here all the time. And I find it to be conflict, especially, they have the same problem up in Aspen in the malls with e-bikes zooming around. So I think that's another piece of this community talk we have to have about how we approach this pedestrian nature of the avenue improvements.
So is your motion for the ordinance?
I think that if I'm clearly understanding this, that leaves it as a pedestrian easement.
Well, the pedestrian easement's there no matter what. That's been there for 30 years. But the condition of the P&Z was to create some additional space, I guess, in the design to allow a bike to go around the gate. It's rather than
dismounting.
Rather than go on the easement.
No, I'm not interested.
I mean, just as
dismount.
It says, as the ordinance.
Get off and walk.
Get out and walk and use the pedestrian. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I was gonna say, I think if that's your position, then removing condition 8 would put people onto the pedestrian easement.
Okay.
All right, so you're moved to approve omitting condition number 8.
Yes.
Is there a second? second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll? First of all, any questions on the motion, since we just went through all that? Okay, Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yes.
Greg Schaffrin.
Yes.
David Knight.
No, because of the omission of 8.
Elise Hottle.
Yes, but I really urge you to come and talk to us about other options. I understand that it is your private property and it is your purview, but I feel like we haven't explored all opportunities just yet.
Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
See you next time. Next up, we have item 7C, which is resolution 2020 series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, ratifying the town planner building official interpretation related to the applicability of the residential energy mitigation program rent fee for the spa at 475 Running Brook Drive, Basalt, Colorado. This is Rich, James, and Jeff.
Thank you. Yes, let me share my screen here. Just a quick second. So this item is an appeal request of a planning director and building official interpretation of the town code. Jim Carr is here this evening. The request is from Jim and Teresa Carr, and they have appealed the town planning director and building official's interpretation from October of 2025 regarding the applicability of the residential energy mitigation program, which is the REMP program. Fees for a spa at 475 Running Brook Drive, which is in Stotts Mill. The background is that the Carrs are installing a 54 square foot spa at their new single family residence that's under construction. And the town building department has assessed a rent fee of about $13,000. The Carrs have requested a code interpretation last year suggesting that the spa should be exempt from the rent fee in that it is less than a 64 square foot spa, and that Appendix C of the town code, which is the fee schedule, does not have any qualifications for an exemption from the rent fee other than that the spa should be under the 64 square foot. The interpretation that was done is attached to your resolution as Exhibit A in the packet materials. Finds that the rent fee should be applicable to the spa at 475 Running Brook. In that town code section 18-23, subsection B3, indicates that spas are only exempt from the rent fee if they are under 64 square feet and are a prepackaged spa. The building official has determined that the proposed spa is not a prepackaged spa, as is discussed in the interpretation. And so the interpretation concludes that Appendix C in Town Code Section 18-23B3 must be used together in determining whether a spa is exempt from the rent fee. And so as such, the interpretation finds that the rent fee would be applicable to the spa at 475 Running Brook, as it is not a prepackaged spa. The code interpretation, once again, is from the Sustainable Building Regulations. And so staff would recommend this evening hearing from Mr. Carr and then taking public comment because it is a public hearing, and then providing council comments on the appeal. If you're comfortable with the interpretation that has been done, you could approve the resolution, which would ratify and confirm the staff interpretation. The other option is you could deny the resolution and direct staff to amend the code interpretation to find the spot 475 Running Brook would exempt. So that's kind of the background. We have Mitch Miller, who's the building official here this evening, and Jeff and Mitch, do you have anything to add before we hear from Mr. Carter?
What I'd like to have is, some information to the April 8th memorandum on the background timeline that Mr. Carr has given you. And it's pretty simple. Questions about the rent, fees, and spas were initiated by James Carr Architecture, which I believe is your son. That was on March 31st. I responded asking for details on the spa and with questions about whether rent fee should be applied. His son James Carr responded the next day saying he would get me the materials and details. I did not receive that till September 15th of 2025.
I don't have anything to add.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I didn't hear.
I don't have anything to add. Yeah.
The floor is yours. Okay, thank you. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I promise to be brief because I think we're about an hour late. You can set the clock if you want, but you got to use the clock on the wall behind you. As I move the 2 hours. So I've laid out our position in our appeal memorandum, which is in your packet. I presume everybody's had a chance to look at it. I have a straightforward outcome that I'm looking for tonight, and that is that the town council apply the rent fee exemption as written in Appendix C. That appendix provides a fee exemption for free allowed square footage of 64 for spas. It doesn't make any distinction with regard to a built-in spa or a factory-built spa or a plug-and-play spa. It is compatible with the rent fee exemption that we, I should say the rent fee calculation worksheet, I think is what it's called, which is part of the code and part of the building code process, or the building permit application process. James, do you have that? Just to give you the background, and I'll get through it quickly. In December of 2024, we applied for a building permit. 2,000 square foot house in Stotts Mills, not a huge house, very small yard. And we used this form, which is what was directed us to do. My son actually filled it out. He's our architect. And you can see the provisions in here for exterior energy uses, and this is the worksheet that's used to calculate the fees that may be applicable, in addition to the almost $50,000 we paid in building permit fees. This is separate, this whole rent calculation thing. So we filled out, our spot at that time was, I think it was 37 and a half square feet as we measured it. So we filled out the form under exempt spa of 38, and it didn't generate any fee whatsoever. And I don't know if it is a live form, if you can do that, but you'll see it. We put in 38 under 2A, and it didn't produce any fee. I had to say abrupt into that. The completed application that we did is in your packet material. If you so if you put 38 square feet, which was at that time what the square footage of our spa was planned to be, under the 64 square foot threshold, it didn't generate any fee. And alternatively, if you tried to enter 38 under the 2B, paragraph 2B for a non-exempt spa, again, no fee was generated. If you entered 38 square feet under outdoor pool, it didn't generate any fee. So that's where things stood when we made the application. The building permit was issued at the end of March 2025. And almost from the outset, we ran into a pretty significant problem with regard to the location of the footers for the foundation. So that was what was happening around the early part of April. We did get the building permit at the end of March, and in May, we paid a substantial deposit for the construction of a built-in spa, concrete spa in a concrete vault below ground, a non-refundable deposit. And that's where things stood. There was an email that I think went to my son that Mitch talked about, asking for details on the spa. The spa was indicated in our building permit application, and we presumed he was looking for details about what the square footage was and so forth. It was in August that we had our plumbing contractor go to get a mechanical permit. And it was at that time that one of the staff members, Carlos Pinier, asked my son Jimmy for information about the spa. What was it like? And he said in that email, I believe that he asked to double check our ramp worksheet, this thing, because a spa is only given to plug and play models, and anything else that is not a plug and play is a swimming pool. Right, so I didn't know what a plug and play was. I guess I kind of presumed it. I started doing a deeper dive into the code to try to find out whether the code drew a distinction between a plug and play spa and any other spa. And I saw the Appendix C, which just refers to spas. I saw the definitions in the code, which has no definition other than a spa. It does define a swimming pool differently. There's definitions for pools and spas in the code, but nothing in it for plug and play. I did find in looking at the ramp fee provisions, the section 18-23, I think, which is what the staff is relying on, which talks about a ramp fee exemption for a package spa that's less than 64 square feet. I think that's how it's right. So that's the first time that I became aware of that. At that point, we had already relied on the Appendix C and this rent calculation worksheet, presuming that as long as we stayed below the 64 square foot threshold, we would be exempt from any rent charges. And it was at that time that we started to calculate what that charge could be. My son and I then met with Carlos and with James, and we showed him this fee here, this calculation worksheet, and how you couldn't generate any fee if you were below the 64 square foot threshold, whether it was an exempt spa, a non-exempt spa, or a pool. And so we presumed
just to clarify, if I could, so if you put 38 in the non-exempt spa cell, that won't generate a fee?
It won't. It did not generate a fee.
Okay.
Yeah, and we pointed that out to Carlos and to James, and they said, well, I see we got a flaw with this calculation worksheet. Why don't you seek an appeal? And so we did. And it was, I think that was the appeal that led to Mitch's October 24 interpretation, where he's looking at the same code we are and relying, I think, on a couple of things. He does refer to some of the codes, the National Electric Code, I think, the International Energy Consolidation or Conservation Code, and the Pool and Spa Code. Now, I looked at the zoning code, and there's a provision in it, I think it's in 18-15, that identifies what codes are adopted by reference by the town of Basalt. The Pool and Spa Code is not one of them. And the National Electric Code that's adopted in the ordinance that today is available online is the 2020 National Electric Code, not the one that was cited in Mitch's memo. And I don't know that there's any difference between the 2021 version and the 2020 version of the National Electric Code, but the point is, I think Mitch was reaching for some definition to sort of differentiate something that's not differentiated in Appendix C, and that is a package spa or a built-in spa. And in the world of codes and codes enforcement, I recognize that Mitch has a point there. However, when I look at the code, and particularly section 1823, which is a fair question, of staff, how do you reconcile the two? I see that section 18-23 says that a package spa is exempt if it's under 64 square feet, or words to that effect. But it doesn't say that a built-in spa is not exempt if it's under 64 square feet. So I don't think that in the basic rule, as far as I can tell from my experience, when it comes to codes, if it's not prohibited, it's allowed. And there isn't any prohibition. The positive language of this code does not prohibit a rent fee exemption for a built-in spa if it's under 64 square feet. So our looking at this code is, and the principles that we were relying on when we had this thing designed and permitted, or we're waiting for the permit, but when we had it designed and we paid the money in reliance on it, was basically if we're under 64 square foot, we're cool. And now we have a substantial rent fee. We did have a meeting with staff. I believe it was on November 4th. After the interpretation was rendered, I met with, I think, Jeff, you may not have been there yet.
No.
But Mitch was there, James was there, Michelle was there. And, we heard each other out, and I understand where he's coming from. And by that I mean the building inspector. But I was informed that this is the first time the town has been asked to permit a built-in spa. This is the first. And so I raised that because there is a question about precedence, and I don't think this is precedential at all. Apparently there's not a lot of people that want to build built-in spas around here. But what we do have is an opportunity to fix this conflict in the code between the Appendix C and the Section 18-23. If it is at least ambiguous, it should be resolved in favor of the property owner. I think that's the law as I understand it. So our ask is that the code apply this exemption, respect our reliance on the town's code and on the town's process for pricing out this fee, and take this opportunity. We're not challenging the whole rent regime here. We're not asking for anything untoward. We were told at the meeting, by the way, in November, that if we applied the rent fee just to spa, the fee would actually be $17,000, but they were giving me a discount of $13,304 to pay a charge for the package spa, for our built-in spa if it's treated as a pool. So, there seems to be a lot of, I think staff frankly is struggling with the lack of clarity in the code and the conflict between what's in Appendix C and in the text of the code, and that's why we're here. I respect the staff, they've been super professional, they've treated us extremely well, got no quarrel with these gentlemen at all, and I hope that you will hear this out, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on it. But we'd like to have the exemption, gives you the opportunity to fix the code, and the next time somebody comes in, they'll have fair notice of what's expected of them. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll lead off with, I got quite a few questions about that. So have there been other, there's an error in the spreadsheet or what it was. What other interpretations were made that, that the rent fee wasn't required like in the past that may be like this? So is this first one that came up, or are there other instances? Did you want to address
I can address a lot of, there was a lot of stuff in there. Well, first of all, this is since I've been here 4 or 5 years now, this is the first time we've had a permanent spa installed. The rep sheet came when I got here, it was kind of in the progress. We've tried to update it as best we can. So finding this issue with the spreadsheet was immediately taken care of when we did find out about that. And it has been corrected to work properly at this point.
Is the current spreadsheet the same as that one?
No, no. I was actually able to put a yes and no on there, so a person can tell us if it was a exempt spa or not, so that it would work in a different process. There's Jim brought up a lot of scenarios here that like the specifics of the emails. Actually my response was the spa you are installing does not appear to be a regular package drop-in style. Send the details to determine if it qualifies for the exemption. And we were talking about that. So that was in April 1st of 2024. Like 3 days after we issued the permit.
Of 24?
Yes, or 25, I'm sorry. I put informational stickers on the plans I give out. Excuse me. And that's what they're for, so that the builder contractors can look at some of our regulations and bring up questions like this. We did work everything we can out with Jim. If you look at codes as a whole, what they are is some statements are a broad statement, and then other places in the code will define the specifics of the code itself, which our ordinance works with. It's pretty much straightforward on that. And as for the definitions Jim was talking about, it was, I got the definitions because he had made claims to us that there were no codes that would call out a package spa or define a permanent spa. So I was pulling all the codes to let him know that it's not just an arbitrary.
I want to pause you there. I mean, it's almost like turning into a rebuttal of sorts.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
Everybody ask questions.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure some of this will
come
out, but I don't want to be cognizant of the time that everybody
We've never had a permanent spa here before. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. Let somebody else ask a question.
I have a question, but before I just want to disclose that the applicant and I are neighbors, and we served together on the HOA board for several years. Looking at your memo, so this is the first time it's happened. Are there any other current applications that have a permanent spa?
Not that I have been part of.
And then in the interpretation part where it says package spas use high density foam to fully insulate the shell and cabinet, retaining more heat effectively than built-in spas. Is it possible to have a built-in spa that's got that same high density foam?
but generally you do not see the full package underneath the spa itself, and it comes as a package from the factory. That's really what a package spa is. It's something you do not put together.
No, that makes sense. I'm just trying to get my head more around like the intent behind these rent fees.
Okay.
And the policy part, so that's where, to me, it seems confusing. I understand a little bit of the confusion here. It's just the focus on package spas versus built-in spas. To me, the rent fees is the idea of reducing greenhouse emissions, increasing energy efficiency. And so I see the part about the insulation being the key part there. I just struggle to connect how that necessitates that it be a package, like where that's built matters more than how it's installed.
Fair enough. I did a pretty good study on permanent spas compared to package spas on energy usage, and there was quite a difference, but let's talk in just common sense scenarios. I got a mass of concrete and I'm heating it up with water. That heat goes into the concrete, I still have to heat the water. I have a fiberglass tub and it's full of insulation on the outside. I don't have that heat dissipation. And so therefore it takes less to actually heat the water and keep it to the temperature. That's pretty simple.
No, that makes sense. But in theory, like somebody could insulate that concrete and could go all out and insulate it.
You're still heating a mass, if you insulated it all the way around, you're still heating a mass, and there is a certain point where you get, let's say at this point, past 3 feet underground, your basic temperature is going to be 50 degrees. So that's a pretty certain fixed thing.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and ask you, unless you have one.
I kind of just wanted to understand the timeline a little more clearly. So we discovered, so you put in your order, your non-refundable order for the spa, and then after that we discovered that the Excel sheet isn't working properly. Isn't the order of events?
Yes, that's correct. We had some email communications. Mitch was asking for details on April 1, right, about this gift from my son. And the spa you were installing does not appear to be a regular package drop-in style. Send the details if it qualifies for the exemption. My thinking then, and still today, is, well, he wants the details of the exemption. Okay, so how big is it, right? That doesn't necessarily portend that there's a distinction in the code between a package spa and a spa that is built on site, okay? So that never penetrated my awareness. It wasn't until August 1 when we had these email communications from other staff asking for details about the REM fee calculation, because they had an application for a mechanical permit from a plumbing subcontractor.
But you left it from April to August?
Yeah, so it was that long, yeah. Right.
That you didn't give them the details?
That's correct, yeah.
Were you here a couple years ago about a similar issue about the code around your porch upstairs being?
Yes.
I remember you.
Yes.
Like
That doesn't sound good?
Well, I just feel like you're finding all the gray areas.
Well,
and I know that it is possible to find issues in the code to bump up against that. I know people personally that have, also had to sort through things. I just it's just a little curious to me to leave it from April to August. When you've already had the experience of having had an issue with the code and having to come here to talk with us about it.
I was not aware that the town was drawing any distinction between package spa or a plug-and-play spa, as it was put in the August 1 email, and what we intended to build on our property. And that's when I reacted immediately. We had meetings all through last fall, requests, emails back and forth, and finally the interpretation that's in your package. So, yeah. We knew that the spot would not be constructed until this spring. So obviously we had bigger problems to deal with as a guide. So yeah. We're a year into it now, we're still not done. I hope to get it finished in my lifetime.
It takes a long time.
So the question about definitions, Jeff, is related to the memo you got in the packet that Carlson versus Ferris deals with that, right? That if something isn't defined specifically in the code as the definition, and therefore you take the commonly used definition of that. And I think in the memo there were several citations from the different planning organizations, like this is what a package spot is, this is what that is, this is all the different terminology. It's because that was a question in your memo.
Yeah, I think.
Code, but it's defined in industry and in common meaning.
Yeah, and I think Jim's point is SPA is defined in the code, but package SPA is not defined in the code. And
that's defined somewhere else, though, isn't it?
Well, to look to what does the modifier package SPA mean, I think as Mitch pointed out, it was defined in the energy code that was adopted by reference. But so there's more digging involved to get to that type of package SPA definition.
I think if I can interrupt, Jeff, a better way to put it would be factory built spa. I think it makes it a little clearer.
I think our exemption says package spa in it.
Yeah.
It does, but there's not a definition of package spa within the rent fee section of the code.
Where that is defined somewhere else. I was trying to make sure I'm reading your memo correctly.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, if it's not defined in the code, then you take the definition that's out there.
It's not defined in our ordinance.
Or the ordinance, yeah.
But I think Mitch says it's in some of those international codes.
Right.
Where they talk about
And it is defined in
that's
the
where
national
you
code, yes.
that's where you would find the definition. So
Who designed the spa, or who's the spa contractor?
Timberline out of Rifle, I think. I think they're Rifle, yeah.
So
I mean, this spa, if I stood in it right now, because we have a concrete vault that's about this wide, that's on 3 sides of it, it backs up to the garage. If I were standing in it, it would be over my head, the top of the wall, which is about this high above the ground. So it goes way down in the ground. And we have an equipment vault that's also in a vault underground, well over 3 feet below grade. But right now it's just a hole in the ground with a concrete wall around it. When they build and this goes to some of the requests for information about the details now. We have a set of drawings that got submitted to the town from the spa contractor. No permit has been issued. We need a separate permit for the spa because it's got to be grounded according to the electrical codes and make it safe and all that stuff. Whether it's no matter what kind of spa it is. So we know we need a separate permit for that, and that's the permit that's on hold right now, not the building permit. So it's in the ground. When the spa company comes out and they start doing the work, they use, I think it's called shotcrete, which is a cementitious product. It has, it's got a back, it's got a ledge where the seats are, and it goes down where the feet go. So it's kind of notched in. And that area, because it doesn't, unlike a package spa, it doesn't have, piping and heaters and pumps stuck, outside the plastic tub. It's actually in a separate equipment vault, so it's all concrete and it will be insulated. There'll be insulation between the concrete and the outside concrete walls. There's a annular space or an open space that will be heavily, and then on the bottom of it too is going to be insulated as well with rock wool, fiber mat insulation, fiber board insulation. It's a recycled material. So I mean, we have to pay for the electricity. We have to pay for the energy usage there. So it's in our interest to insulate it. And
Yeah, well, the goal of the REM, as you know, is to reduce greenhouse gases ultimately. So even if you're the one paying for the energy, that doesn't necessarily negate the emissions. And I worked for a landscape architect for 5 years. Timberline should know the definition of a package spa.
well, that's not the issue, whether, you know, whether,
But I'm saying they
whether
should
a
be
packer spa is
familiar.
more energy efficient than a built-in spa, that's just not the issue tonight.
No, it's not the issue, but I'm saying they're familiar with the REM rules, and they would know that what they were building for you did not qualify as a spa, in my opinion.
They would know that what?
That what they were building for you did not qualify as to the letter of the REM rules in terms of being
Well,
eligible for an exemption, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, the rent thing is not a familiar thing to me, because I'm not from Basalt.
No, I understand that, and I'm
But-
saying that sometimes you have to lean on your contractors, and I think Timberland should have known.
Yeah, well, they're good at taking money, and I haven't heard from them since, I can tell you that. But look, this spa is several times more durable than the plastic spas that end up in the landfill.
So yeah, I think you've made that point. I just want to make sure we get a chance to ask questions.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sitting down, so good, okay.
I have more questions, but I want to make sure I don't just hog the mic here. Yes. Okay, so as far as like, you know, one point of the argument is Appendix C doesn't say, but Appendix 18 or Section 1823D3 does. You know, our duty is to interpret all that. Everybody interprets the code together. Is that correct? That's what I read your memo.
Yeah, it's to read all the words of an ordinance together, giving meaning to every word with specific controlling over general phrases, generally rules of statutory interpretation.
And the argument about zoning, is this really even a zoning matter? Yes. So yeah, I just want to kind of get down to the issue I have with this whole thing is that you use the spreadsheet, right? The spreadsheet made you believe you didn't have to pay the rent fee. But if I recall, though, I'm also hearing that the spreadsheet was used in December of 24. You were notified in April of 25, then you made the commitment with Timberline in May of 25. After you were notified, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that timeline correctly.
Yes, but I have the email here, and mentioned that I have it too. If you look at that email, it doesn't say, it says we need details, okay? It doesn't say that the rent fee worksheet is incorrect, because even though it says if you're under 64 square feet, you're exempt, that may not be the case, because it may not be the particular type of spa or hot tub that qualifies for that exemption. I mean, if you look at the spreadsheet and you look at the code, it just says spas. I mean, there's no indication, you know, that's. I'm sorry, but that's just not fair notice. You know, that's just not fair.
So I want to understand, I guess, from again, this is Jeff. Maybe a question for you with a spreadsheet that might impart some kind of guidance on an applicant versus, and there's an error in the spreadsheet and the code itself, is the single source of truth. I want to understand how we should reconcile that. I feel like that's kind of the crux of the appeal.
Well, I guess I'll say that wrapped up in this, there's a code interpretation question, but I think Jim's also getting at some of these questions of fairness in the application of the code based on the notice and the implementation of the code through the worksheet. And so, if the legal question is, what is the reliance on, can you rely on a a worksheet with an error in it. I think there's an opportunity. I don't think that let me rephrase that. Does an applicant get to rely on an error that's later discovered before permit? I don't think so, but it has certainly had a cascading effect, I think, in this case. So there's the kind of the code interpretation, and then given it some consideration with, I think, Jim's argument related to fairness.
Yeah.
Does the worksheet stand alone though? Because isn't there the code language as
The
well?
worksheet's a tool. It's not the code,
Yeah.
right?
But it does say at the bottom of the worksheet before referencing, right there at the bottom. But then when you go look at Appendix C, so you go to reference it, and it just says spa.
Right.
Is 64 free allowed square footage.
So, did you get a building permit with the spa shown on the plans?
The building permit the building plans that were the basis for the house construction permit showed the spot. But it's not the permit that we need now, which is the spa permit.
But you were issued a permit that showed a spa,
Yeah,
and
we showed
found out sometime later that you had to have a REM feed that was based on 64 square feet and a plug and play. And to me, it's just an honest miss, Not on your part perhaps, but on the town. I think that to depend on a contractor to advise you, and I disagree with Elise on the contractor statement, because these guys get paid to provide a scope. They don't get paid to provide specific information about what they're going to install. You make that decision when you design the house, and they comply with what you said to build. It's not that they're there to provide expertise to you on whether this should be more efficient than the other. I think that, and I was really interested in how you put that together in your discussion about what David mentioned. I can't think of the term right now, it's technical, but to take all this and bundle it around one, you made a submittal. You submitted to the town. There was no rebut or whatever you want to call it until a year or so later, as I understand it.
Well, the plans were submitted in December of 2024, and by August 1, we had
And then you went to April 25,
right,
now we're on April 26.
right.
April 25 is.
April 25 was Mitch's.
Mitch saying maybe we need to discuss this.
We need details.
Details.
Can I make a quick comment to you? If we don't know that the spreadsheet is not filled out correctly because we didn't know the details, it was not a plug and play.
Well, I think the spreadsheet
So
was
the
filled out.
spreadsheet was actually, we could accept
I
it.
think the spreadsheet was filled out correctly,
Yes.
because it didn't define what you asked to be defined later on. So it was filled out correctly by the applicant in the first place. Then this kind of happened. So, I'm thinking, well, lesson learned. You have to look at these things. And plus the timing of this, how long it's gone on. I mean, I applaud you for patience. And I know there's a lot of back and forth, and we're really busy, but, I've been around these things for a long time. And I think this is just one of those things that we missed it. That's fine. And I understand we've had other conversations in other jurisdictions about rent and carbon footprint and all those things. But we're talking about a 38 square foot hot tub that's probably max 3 feet deep. So it's not.
It's 54 now,
So it's bigger.
We expanded it since the initial application.
Well, that's.
But still under the threshold.
But anyway, there's lots of things like this in the code that are good. And I think that's why we're looking at a lot.
Yeah. I'd say first, thank you so much for working with staff. It's been a long process, and I think the more that we can find any pieces of the code that are confusing, the better the chance we have to clarify them. So I think that's much appreciated, because if anyone ever decides to build a spa again in Basalt, like, now they're gonna know, and that's thanks to your work and painstaking work at that. All of my questions have been answered by what other folks have said. I think clearly we goofed on the spreadsheet, and that is something we need to fix and own, and I'm sorry about that. That's not how it should be, but I do think at the end of the day, what the code and the policy's intention is the run fee. Like, you can use more energy outside, and here's the offset for that. So I would feel comfortable making a motion for the staff interpretation, unless people want to have further discussion about it.
I support staff interpretation as well, and I think that, I do apply to patients as well, and I agree with what Hannah said. And I do think there was a goof on the spreadsheet, but as we determined, the spreadsheet's on the code, and I do think that there was an opportunity to remedy the situation before such a big financial commitment was made. And I think that it sounds like the town has made a lot of, they made a lot of attempts to remedy it before, we made a non-refundable payment.
I just want to add, I have spent a lot of time thinking about this. I believe that staff is acting in good faith, that it's appropriately. I have thought, but I do understand that we made a mistake, and I think the town needs to know that. And I think it's nice to say thank you for your time in submitting this appeal, but I think it's important. And I think that I intend to support the appeal. I think that we did make a mistake. We fixed that code. I think we acknowledged the worksheets changed. I think Appendix 6 or Appendix C is confusing, and that needs to be changed. And I just feel like we owe it to the community to have a clear code, and if you made a mistake, we need to take responsibility.
So yeah, I'm gonna be supportive. I think staff's interpretation though was correct, but I do think, as Jeff said, it was also a matter of fairness. And I think I'm okay with. I think if we deny the resolution, then you'll get that relief. But I want to also applaud staff. I think the interpretation is 100% right. But I think in this instance, I can see how you rely on that. Ended up in a situation. I do think Mitch did reach out. That's a little bit of, to be honest, an area where I think we could have fixed this a long time ago. But be that as it may, here we are. And go ahead and vote no. I guess what we have to do on the resolution to do that.
If I don't read the terms and exceptions of my iPhone update and I just check yes, I'm still accountable for whatever was in there, so I'm not inclined to grant the exemption.
So as we know, everybody states wants to make a motion.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 23, series of 2026. Make sure I'm doing this right. Version A.
No, you don't. You just
No.
make the motion. The resolution.
Okay. Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 23, series of 2026.
Is there a second?
To be clear, the 13K is
Yeah, it's in there. Is there a second?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say that. Okay. It's been moved and seconded, just clarifying the motion. Yes is ratifying the staff interpretation, no is just this in the packet, denying the resolution, and directing staff to administrative interpretation. So, Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Rick Stevens,
no.
Greg Schaffern,
No.
David Knight,
No.
Elise Hall,
So if I say yes, I'm upholding the staff interpretation?
Correct.
Yes.
Hannah Bowman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
What happens now?
So that's a 3-3 tie, so it's
How would you feel about it?
That's a no, right?
Well, it's interesting because it's an appeal, right?
So how's that work?
Yeah, so
This is our first appeal that since I've been on council.
so it's an appeal of a staff interpretation. So the staff interpretation stands, and so I think the council has to take action to overturn the staff interpretation. The resolution's written to ratify, but it takes an affirmative act to overturn an appeal, to overturn the staff interpretation through an appeal.
So then the staff's interpretation stays.
So it's kind of, it could be, and unfortunately, our code is, appeal process is a little light. Yeah. So unfortunately, having an even number here doesn't help that. But in the app, it would take a majority of council to overturn the staff interpretation on an appeal.
Does he have, do you have this clear?
I understand.
Okay.
You're an attorney, right?
So I think in the absence of an action, there's the staff's interpretation would stand.
That's it.
And so there's no affirmative motion one way or the other, so or no passing motion one way or the other, so the town's interpretation would stand, or the staff's interpretation would stand.
So unfortunately, we only had 6 people, and like I said, I think staff's finding was spot on, but I also understand voting by isn't the fairness aspect, and but here we are. So
Thank you for your time.
thank you for your
Thank you. And thank you for blurting that stuff out. It helps make us better.
All right. Item 7D is a public hearing, second reading, ordinance number 7, series of 2026, ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving code amendments to the Town Code. Town Code Section 18-103 to adopt by reference the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. That's Jeff, James, and Mitch again.
I'm going to be very brief on this because we've had work sessions and a first reading on this, but this is to adopt the state's model wildfire resiliency code with a handful of local amendments. Those create structure hardening requirements and site area requirements for new development in areas that have are within wildfire hazard areas. This would go within the building code. It's a state mandate to adopt a code that meets this minimum of the state wildfire code. This is a public hearing, so unless there's any questions, I would suggest we take public comment and then council action.
All right, well, I'll open the public hearing. It's 9:43. Carlton, Garrett, Bueller. I'll close the hearing at 9:44. And question, comments, motion?
I got one quick comment. When we made the motion last 2 weeks ago, it was to include an amendment for appeal. I don't see that in this one. It's in the minutes. There's kind of like what we just saw. It was the idea of the process that if exactly things that trigger it, somebody can appeal it. And so it's in one of the staff memos for last 2 weeks ago, we talked about it saying having that process in there. I think that process is important. It was part of the motion 2 weeks ago.
There was comments about natural disasters.
You know, James, unless I might have missed that for the packet this go around.
We can always continue the public hearing second reading.
If you guys want to continue that that's my mistake. I'll get that in there for our next
I'll make
reading.
that motion that we continue to public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 7, series of 2026, 2026.
Second.
Do we need to continue it if we just do it as like amended with that?
No, we already made that.
We already made that in some last time.
Yeah, let's just,
Got it.
yeah,
Okay, I wasn't here last.
let's just get it in there.
So it's moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Yeah, no worries. We'll get that next time. Next
Thanks,
up.
Greg.
Yeah, that was great proofreading. So, what Richard catch us up. Item 7E is board and committee assignments. So, Gloria.
Yeah, okay. So I actually asked you all to think about this prior, and I wasn't able to connect with everyone, so I didn't really have a draft out for you all. So I figure we can talk through these. But the appointments are highlighted in your packet, and we have several appointments here. We have Mayor Pro Tem, the Rudai Water and Power Authority, Roy Fork Transit. So if we wanted to go down those, and a few others as we go. So wanted to see how you would like to do this, but my suggestion would be to go each one and talk through each council member that's interested.
So, yeah, if we can pass it again to do that, and then we'll make a motion for all of them.
Yeah. So the first one I would say was Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep.
I'm interested. I think I can go into detail, but at a very short summary of why I'm interested. I do a lot of advocacy at the state level on climate, childcare, and housing policy, and I think that helps add to that. And I've also been part of the Transit Coalition for the past 10 months, and I'm now the co-chair with Susan Merle on the steering committee for that. That is the body mostly of elected officials, RAFTA, and other major employers and organizations talking about congestion into Aspen, perhaps leading to a paid HOT lane or congestion fee there. And the Mayor Pro Tem typically is on the RAFTA board, so I think that would pair very nicely.
Good, Whitney.
I support you as Pro Tem. I agree. I think that would be seamless to have you in both RAFTA roles.
Same here, so. That's,
Do you think you can support the board's position when we direct your comments
Yes.
to those organizations?
Yes.
We've run into that before, when we had a representative go voices all the people who were not represented the board. It created some big issues for us, concept of working with others.
Yeah.
So as long as that's, because I think that's the basics, plus when he's on vacation, we take the spot.
Yeah, and we actually talked about that at the Transit Coalition at the last steering committee meeting of making sure that we were being very clear about, like, I'm Susan Merle, and I'm here in my Transit Coalition capacity, because there's kind of a roadshow of what the findings were, and you just want to make sure that that's very clear that that's the Transportation Coalition's findings, not like the town of Snowmass Village or the town of Basalt for that. So, yes, that's a very important point and something we've been talking about.
I think the eye opener for me to start thinking about that was the fact that they started to do traffic counts on the Wood Creek bypass and discovered that there's more cars entering Aspen than they thought there were after decades of messing around. So that this infrastructure issue connecting with tourism and build out of the resort is a big deal for themselves. So appreciate you taking this back.
I have a question, just particularly with Angel not being here, can we sign her up for all sorts of committees? We want to put her on.
I'm gonna ask you to leave the room.
I mean, it's
Because
really
she's
up to
currently
the
on
board.
one, see, I can see that she's just on one. Has she told you what she's interested in?
She did say she was interested in Mayor Pro Tem, and let me find her email real quick. I said I wasn't able to get from everyone, so I decided not to put it down. So she said she would like to give first dibs on committees to Elise and Greg, but she would serve at the Rudai Water and Power if no one else volunteers, and she's also willing to serve as pro tem if a more senior counselor does not volunteer. So those were her comments there.
Does she want to stay on West Mountain Regional Housing Commission?
She did not define if she wanted to stay on it or not, but given that she didn't say she wanted to, so I would
She's
assume.
on it. Yeah, she's on it. Okay, so I think we have consensus there on pro tem for Hannah. Ruwapa. Is anybody else interested in Ruwapa? Greg's interested. Angel's interested. Anyone else?
I've done it before. Nobody else was gonna do it, I was gonna step up. Yeah, play to do.
Yeah, same.
All right, let's come back to that one. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rafta alternate. I'm gonna nominate Hannah for that.
Yeah, I would be very interested.
Who else is supportive of that?
Support.
Basically, me, unofficially, but still. All right, so that is set. This BOZA, zoning adjustment, it hardly needs, I think we need an alternate.
We actually need more than an alternate, so.
Oh, we do, okay.
Yeah.
Who's the
actually
other?
have a survey of
Angel.
I wouldn't actually fill those right now.
Okay.
So you're saying hold off on that one? Okay. And then, we also want to see where we have multiple people and we can kind of figure out from there how to do that. Vale, who's interested in Vale? I'm interested. Great.
I'm interested in retaining that seat.
Of course, yeah. So that's it, 2 counselors, so if no one else wants to do Vale, I'm supportive of Greg doing it.
Yeah, that sounds great for both.
And emergency management,
It's probably the one I'm most interested in. Put that out there.
Meeting Thursday.
Is there anything?
anyone
Anybody
else?
else? But I don't, since the new guy in town, I'm happy to see somebody.
Okay. You guys all good with that? Great. So let's go back to Ruwapa. We just gave you 2, Greg. We need to get Angel Ruwapa. Is that, you guys good with that?
Who is, sorry, who is Ruwapa?
Angel.
Angel, okay.
She said she was interested,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's good with that. And then Northwest Cog, you were interested in jumping off of that. Is that just one person or?
Yeah.
And Sarah's the staff person.
Sarah's a staff.
Anybody interested in Northwest?
I mean, I'm interested, but it's not a great time.
Yeah, they do typically meet on
At 10
Thursdays.
a.m.
4 foot 10.
I just had found it very fruitful, I guess, to participate. It forces a lot of counties. Very usually listen and attend the economic summit was good. It's a lot of coordinating information gathering and sharing. It's what we call problem solving.
I mean, I
You're
can
not
jump on
selling
that one.
it.
If nobody else is going to do it.
I said you're not selling it.
I mean, there might be some economies of scope, scale. If I'm already doing like interfacing with other
Okay.
towns, like the people who are here on the table.
Yeah.
I'll take that one. And Nordic Council, we need a, We need,
Simply ask
An
the
alternate.
County Nordic Council.
we need an alternate. Are you still interested in staying, or do you want to
I
slide
think
out?
that I would just be better as an alternate because I don't have a job here on Wednesdays, and that's not going to change for the foreseeable future. So I zoom in, I'm not listening to meetings, just like Rick was saying, like I don't feel like I'm very helpful because I'm not in the room, and I don't.
Well, the interesting thing there is that the Nordic report, Aspen Nordic, Aspen Nordic, known as Council, is reports to the County Open Space, which reports to host committee of the County Open Space, which reports to the county commissioners. So it's pretty much a lock from when it leaves the Parks and Open Space board. Have staff reports, and then it just goes to commission, it's kind of just a link. And then, it's, I have to admit, we had some pretty big issues with Nordic, in the valley, Meadow, and so on, so I believe that they should operate there.
So here's the big responsibility for us with Nordic is we need somebody who, there's two things. One, you gotta kind of be in going out there and talking about Nordic Steve, and it's kind of just a lot of discussion. And it's cool. I did it for a while. And then two, we need somebody who can kind of keep an eye on and what's going on with the Nordic Steve around here. And at the club, when we're reiterating, kind of represent the ski community here in Wilson. It's something when we have snow, it's great. And like they opened up the new those trails over there by high school on the Grange property. And, it's good to have somebody down here who can speak to how things are going. So that's what it's good for.
You might have seen that in the paper today too about their big moratorium on fishing licenses because of drought. So I think that one of the things that they're going to come to grips with eventually is impact to the part of the trail systems that exist, moving, action, vegetation, weed control, and all that stuff. So there are some other things going on that we got to engage in.
Sounds like you're interested, Rick.
There's some legends of Nordic on that. I mean, it's if you got the time and you're interested in the subject matter, it's cool.
It is very interesting. It
we'll
has been frustrating for me to not be able to actually be there, and I don't feel like I'm helping at all. But I will keep the seat and keep listening, and I'll keep an ear out for those things.
How does y'all feel about Nordic skiing?
Yeah, when does it meet now? Because I used to have it on my calendar.
During the day.
What time is it? Yeah, I mean it's
like you can't even get back to Valley for early pickup at the school. It's just.
I love Nordic Sea and it's important. I love my capacity and things that I have to get involved with.
I'll do it if we can tag team covering remotely.
Yeah.
So we have some. Like right now, I can do it.
I can always listen in. I just can't physically get there. I feel like they should have somebody physically there.
I'm working on expanding the teaching schedule this year, so I will have more to do. But right now, I'm fine.
What meeting is up third? If neither of you can make it, send it my way.
Like so, yeah. So I'll do primary and you can do alternate. And I know those guys too. So it's, like I said, I enjoy it my time.
Thanks, David.
I know ski, so. It's not my favorite.
Okay, what else?
We have the discretionary committee.
That's the funding.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
And then Public Services Facilities Design Committee, Rick and I have both expressed an interest in that. The first meeting of that is tomorrow. No, a week.
A week from tomorrow, yes.
So, you guys go with that? Thank you. Sure.
I'm sorry, we're moving on that one.
Yeah.
They would leave for Congress.
Are there any other changes we need to,
I would be interested in having someone else on climate action committee if I'm joining RACTA more time, and also that it's actually on Fridays at 10 a.m. and that is.
Is it the second Friday?
Yes.
Okay.
That butts up against a meeting I have in my day job, so my attendance is 4.
And I can take that.
okay. Yeah,
And
that's
she helps run the group too. So that is an upgrade.
cool. All right.
Did we get a council member for discretion? Great.
Yep, Rick.
So yeah,
And then
Angela and I agree on that.
And I expressed interest to Gloria if they ever need an alternate for West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. That I'd be interested
That makes a lot of sense.
You start.
in. I started that one too.
You started that one too, so, I agree, I'd like to see that.
And if you have any interest in C2CA, they love you and would be thrilled if you wanted to grace them with your presence at any time, but you also sign up for a lot of stuff right now.
Do you? Yeah. No, I was just invited to that get together they had. I had a conflict, but yeah, I also that Friday morning.
That is also, sorry, clearly I did not update Gloria in advance of this. Those have changed recently to Wednesdays at, I think here we go. Ledge committee is at 12:15 to 1:30 on Wednesdays. Possibly the first and third Wednesday of the month. And by possibly, I mean, it is the first and third
What's
Wednesday.
ledge?
Like legislation, so legislation coming up at the, well, I guess there's a couple. So there's ledge committee, that's Wednesdays, twice a month, so that's like what's happening at the state level. There's policy committee, I think that's the one Fridays. And then there's another one right now, like a working group, which is working with both of the gubernatorial campaigns on their climate platforms, which is the 1 p.m. Wednesdays, generally third Wednesday of the month.
Let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Great, sorry.
Have you been doing all of those?
I love it.
Can
Love it
you
so much.
recap like what was that?
I pretend to be yes.
I don't mean to cut off
No, I can talk about it.
my whoop's telling me I need to help.
So Mayor Pro Tem, Hannah. We got water and power authority, that's on Clearly, right?
Michelle.
Michelle's going to stay. Thank you. Royalport Transit is Hannah. We're holding off on the Board of Zoning Adjustment for the time being. Greg is going on to the Land Board. Greg is going on to the Emergency Management Committee. David Knight will take on Wondrous Cod. Aspen Stone Authority Council will be David, Angela, and Hannah in that order. Council Discretionary Committee will be Rick, Angela, and David. And Public Services Facilities Design Committee will be David and Rick. Climate Action Committee, Elise will take that on, replacing Hannah. And Elise has volunteered to be an alternate for the West Mountain Regional Housing Committee, should we be? That's my,
You got it. I move that we make those assignments as annually listed.
So second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Cool. Okay, thanks everybody for those. Went well. We got one more. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, one more.
Item 7F is resolution number 24, series 2026, resolution of the town council of Basalt, Colorado, approving and replacing the town's personnel code and employee handbook. Gloria, John.
And I will just ask how much you would like me to go into detail on the memo or any of the changes that we have to our handbook.
We read it thoroughly, and
Yeah.
are very excited we're getting parental leave. Good job.
Well, I think it's a good balance of cleanup and also enhancing the employee experience.
And
And clarifying and making it, it's all goodness, all the changes that we have to this also. Any other comments, or is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 24, series of 2026.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll hit, hour over.
We
Can
caught
I
up.
adjourn? I don't even know if we still.
We had some time on that last.